Welcome to r/Am I the Jerk, where Karen demands OP's Taylor Swift ticket. Would I be the jerk if I refused to return a Taylor Swift ticket that StubHub is demanding back from my coworker? I'm 27, female. My coworker, Emily, who's also 27, sold me a Taylor Swift Eras Tour ticket last November for one of her shows later this year for $700. Expensive, yes, but the seats are fantastic. Just at the end of the catwalk, 7 rows back or something. I've been a huge Taylor Swift fan for a very long time, and I felt like I had hit the jackpot when she sold me my ticket because I know how disgustingly overpriced tickets are currently reselling for, especially for her North America shows. Before Emily sold me the ticket, she had it up for sale on StubHub for $2,700, but nobody had bought it. I knew this when buying the ticket and assumed that once I bought the ticket, she'd take it down. A few weeks ago, when I saw Emily in the office, she told me that she had forgotten to take the ticket off of StubHub when I bought it, and someone else bought it earlier that week. I didn't think too much of it because I figured that she'd just have to contact StubHub to explain that she doesn't have the ticket anymore and that would be that. But today, I got a DM from Emily telling me that I need to send the ticket back to her. Apparently, StubHub has a policy where if someone tells a ticket that they don't have, they're on the hook to pay for a similar replacement ticket for the buyer at an equal or greater amount than the price it originally sold for. Yeah, sure they do. This means that she'd likely have to pay $2,700 or more to StubHub for her mistake. She was apologetic, but I'm devastated. I've grown up listening to Taylor, and I'm such a huge fan. Going to this concert truly meant so much to me, and I can't afford to see her anywhere else other than my city. I'm so sad. I haven't answered Emily's message yet. She has offered to give me half of the sale profit for sending her the ticket back so I can maybe find another ticket. But here is where I may be the jerk. I want to ask her for all of the profit so I can at least have a fighting chance at a nosebleed seat or something. I don't know if it's right for her to mess up the way she has and still make a profit from this. So Reddit, would I be the jerk for saying that the only way I'm sending back the ticket is if I get the full profit from the sale? Actually, she sold you the ticket. You owe her nothing. This was her fault and only her fault, and you get to keep the ticket, not the jerk. Do not give up your ticket, OP. You'll regret it 1000%. It's her mistake, not yours. If it was a friend, I would say return the ticket every time, but if it's just a coworker, I could easily see an Eras Tour ticket outweighing that relationship. Well, what do you think? Should OP give back the ticket or not? Please let us know. All I know is I'm about to start buying some Taylor Swift tickets myself. Talk about an appreciating asset. Friend's sister was flirting with my husband in front of me. I told her off, and now they want an apology from me. I, 31 female, am close friends with Lisa, who's 33. We met in college and became roommates, and I love her so much. Lisa has a sister, Amy, who's in her 20s, whom I've met occasionally in college, but she was so young at that time that we never really hung out. Lisa had a bridal shower in February, and I financially contributed to most of it since I wasn't able to be there in person to help with the planning. I gave money to Amy to pay for everything, the decor, food, the drinks. I even paid for an overnight stay at a hotel for all 7 girls. I did all of this because I couldn't make it to her bachelorette party the week before. I had also paid for the limo Amy wanted to host the party in. At the shower, I saw Amy, and she was gushing about how I had spent a lot of money on Lisa. I just said if it's for Lisa, I would have paid for anything. Amy was hinting that my job was paying so much money for me to spend on Lisa this much. I'm a new surgeon, just graduated from residency. I got a pay bump, but not a lot. I'm lucky because my husband is supporting me while I go through fellowship. My husband, who's 40, is a doctor too, but so much more advanced in his career than I am. For my wedding gift, he paid off the remainder of my student loans. He's amazing, and I'm so obsessed with him. Wedding happened in March. My husband and I came for the wedding. Family and close friends were invited to Lisa's parents' place for dinner after. Amy was very handsy with my husband. Even during the wedding, she was asking him about his job, how smart he was to be working in the ICU, how hot he was, how he looks like a young Alain Delon, blah blah. And he's a French actor, if you're like me and don't really know about this kind of stuff. My husband was giving me signals to come to him, and I did. This happened at least 2 more times. At Lisa's parents, Amy was wrapping her arm around my husband's back and was serving him drinks and food. I told Lisa's mom about how Amy's making me and my husband very uncomfortable, and her mom pulled her aside and told her off, I think because she came out grumpy. She was still acting like a crazed teenager, because when we wanted to leave, she wouldn't give my husband his jacket back to him and kept smelling it. Creepy. I had a feeling that she was drunk and completely out of it. My husband raised his voice and told her to stop messing around and to give it to him. I yelled, "Can you stop being so difficult? You've been shamelessly flirting with my husband in front of me the whole day. Give me the darn jacket and leave us alone." I got a text from Lisa's mom demanding I publicly apologize to Amy, as in post on social media a heartfelt apology, because some of the guests heard me yell at her and thought that I was overreacting and humiliated her. Lisa is on my side and told me Amy has always had gold-digging tendencies and that this isn't the first time she's done something like this. She flirted with her friend's dad and their next-door neighbor who is married when she thought that they were wealthy. Lisa said that she'll handle it. I already felt so bad I ruined the last moments of her wedding day, and now she has to deal with this. I'm ruminating on this a lot lately and wondering if I should apologize to Amy. I don't want to, but then again, if I did, I would explain exactly what happened and how it merited my reaction to her. Though this might add fuel to the fire. There's so much drama right now, and I want to preserve my friendship with Lisa. Are the guests at the wedding also your Facebook friends? I don't understand how a public apology on social media would work in this case. I mean, I imagine the guests, including aunts, uncles, neighbors, etc., of the family. Are they really going to see your Facebook apology? OP. Her mom wants me to tag her and Lisa so their family can see it. I don't even use Facebook anymore, but her family's still active on it. If you don't use Facebook, then that's your answer. Lisa said she'll handle it. I'd leave this alone. Update. Previous post got so popular that Amy's mom found it and texted me to take it down, in all caps. I got around to read most of the comments a day after I posted when I finished my shift. I haven't apologized to anybody yet. I gaslit Amy's mom into thinking that I never did such a thing and that I did not have a Reddit account. She believed it, I think, since she didn't text me back. Come on, the details I put in that post were exactly what she experienced and she didn't find it odd? For clarification, 1. One of you said I had the spine of a jellyfish. Loved that comment. And not apologizing was the right thing to do. I was hesitant and was actually considering giving the apology because of the fact that she fed me and let me stay in her home during Thanksgiving and Christmas many years ago when I couldn't go home to my family. I'm the kind of person who will remember every good thing you do for me and do my best to reciprocate or get even so as to not be indebted to you. 2. A lot of people insinuated that me being docile and restrained in those kinds of situations makes me a bad surgeon, to which I say, I beg your pardon. Would you want someone who's operating on you to have a criminal record for causing harm to someone? Also, I've dealt with worse than Amy. I've survived handling all kinds of dangerous patients. Me being aggressive would have gotten me kicked out of my fellowship. Things that have transpired. 1. I tried to avoid contacting Lisa since she went off on her honeymoon, but because of the popularity of my previous post, I decided to give her a heads up. Lisa was more than apologetic. In fact, she FaceTimed me and we had a very teary-eyed conversation about her family. There was a lot more going on that I never knew about, but mine and my husband's involvement in her family drama was the last straw. She has decided to go no contact with her mom and sister. She also warned me that Amy might approach my husband in some way, but no idea how. She's also getting her extended family involved with Amy. 2. My husband does not have any social media, and he did not give out his number to anyone at all during the wedding. He's really serious about loyalty and transparency in our marriage. We have access to each other's electronics. I know he would never cheat on me. 3 days ago, someone called my husband's clinic asking to get his number for an emergency and that she needed to get a hold of his wife. The nurse who answered refused to give a physician's personal number and the conversation got heated. My husband's colleague, another intensivist, took over and asked her to tell him what the emergency was so that he could tell my husband himself. The person on the phone argued some more, and when the doctor wouldn't give in, she hung up. That friend told my husband what happened and said the woman didn't give her name but had a very high-pitched voice. My husband immediately knew that it was Amy, but we have no proof. I know it was her. She must have searched my husband's name on Google and found where he worked, since his professional profile is online along with the name of his hospital. I'm getting more and more irritated by this whole thing and have gone full-on mama bear mode over my husband. He was furiously annoyed after the wedding and was saying if the genders were switched, it wouldn't have been good for him. My husband has had terrible experiences with women before. 2 women at different times tried to baby trap him. One did some Sherlock-level manipulation, and one harassed us when we were dating. He's usually a cool and calm guy, But now he hasn't been smiling or joking around with me like he always does ever since the wedding. Anywho, my uncle, our lawyer, was consulted. Security at my husband's department and around our home have been notified. Thank you. P.S. Kelly, if you're reading this, do something about your daughter before something ends up happening. Also, you don't deserve your older daughter. Dang. Can your lawyer uncle draft a letter to scare Amy? Just outlining what she's doing is harassment and the outcome if she continues. Sounds like Amy might need mental help and threats of repercussions might force her mother's hand to get her help. Is the dad around? I hope other family members will start pressuring Amy to get help. OP. Nope, we couldn't prove it was Amy that called. We just have to wait and see if she does anything. Our only hope is that she stays broke and can't afford to travel to where we live since it's far from hers. Her dad is deceased. I hope so too. Final update. I've got so many DMs wanting an update, but legal things have happened since, and I couldn't tell, especially since everyone that was involved knows about this post already. We have the number of the woman who called, but it wasn't Amy's number. I have her number, but she could have gotten another number. At that time, I was almost confident it was her, so I got the name of the person the phone number was registered to. We'll call her CC Smith. What threw me off was this person had been using that number for 7 years, but I later found out this woman lived/lives in the area that Amy lives. I called Lisa to ask if she knew who CC is, and lo and behold, CC is Amy's best friend. I told Lisa about the call to the clinic. She went silent, said she had to go, and ended the call. The next day, March 21st, Lisa texted me that she had gotten a verbal confession from Amy about the call to my husband's clinic. Not only that, when everything happened right after the wedding, I had not blocked Amy from my Instagram yet. She must have gone through my followers list and found my husband's family, DM'd them with evidence that I was cheating on him. Wedding was on March 10th. The call happened March 15th. I blocked her March 16th. Sometime after March 10th, she had found and gotten in contact with my mother-in-law, 2 sister-in-laws, and my niece, who's 13, about my infidelity. They were skeptical, thank God, and contacted my husband on March 23rd. I swear, this girl is so dumb. I don't get why she would want to waste her time on doing this and doing it very poorly at that. My sister-in-law sent me a screenshot from Amy to my husband, and he wanted to throw his phone to the wall. Lisa sent me the recording of the entire call she had with Amy, admitting to everything and some serious threats about what she would do to me. One of which was that she was going to report me to my state medical board. No basis whatsoever, like I said. She's an idiot, the premium kind. We got in touch with my uncle, yes, the lawyer you guys were so baffled about. We sent a cease and desist letter telling Amy to not contact me, my husband, and in-laws, and I let my chief of surgery and head of my program know about this just in case. March 29th, she really reported me to the medical board. It doesn't have to be doctor-patient related. A doctor could be harassing someone in the grocery store, and a witness can report that doctor to the board. That's the purpose of creating this avenue to complain. Even though they were warned about this, they still had to do the preliminary investigations on me and interview me to hear my side. Major pain for me, especially since I'm 5 months pregnant. The case on me is now closed. April 3rd, Amy DM'd my niece again with new evidence of my infidelity. My sweet niece ran to her mom, who told my husband and me. We got a court-ordered restraining order against her now. When all of this happened, Lisa was helping me along the way. The cherry on top was when Lisa had access to Amy's email and her Instagram. She never logged out. Posted how she tried to home-wreck a marriage and outing Amy online with screenshots and snippets of that phone call. Lisa changed her password and Amy couldn't log in to delete it. Lisa made this known to her entire family and they're putting pressure on her mom, hi Kelly, to rein her in. I don't know the specifics, but they're using the family inheritance or some heirloom as a bargaining chip for her to behave good. Amy has some mental issues for sure. I really hope this is the last of this and Amy stays away from us, but I have this gnawing feeling that she's going to try something again. Lisa is the hero in this, honestly. She'll continue to keep an eye out to see if Amy starts her crap again. P.S. Husband and I are going to couples counseling together as per advised in the comments of the prior post. We're doing very well. He's planning a gender reveal soon for me. He knows the gender since he's a trained sonographer. I enjoyed this story until the end when you had to throw in the part about gender reveal. This is 2024, and people like you who still think it's okay to assign genders at birth are beyond me. If we want to see true change and acceptance, we have to be that change and acceptance. Just because a baby is born a certain way does not, I repeat, Does not mean that they will be the gender you decide to play God and assign to them. I feel so sorry for your kid, and they will probably grow up to be just as judgmental as you are. I know who you're voting for, and trust me, he won't win. Am I the jerk for moving on so quickly after my husband left me? I'm 47 female. My husband, who's also 47, asked for a separation on our 14th anniversary while we were away in a foreign country to celebrate. While we weren't so close as we used to be, we almost never fought and generally enjoyed each other's company and our families. We do not have any kids. The night before our anniversary, he brought up that he wasn't very happy in the relationship but didn't know why. The next morning, I asked to see his phone and he said no. He said I would find flirty messages with one or more other women on it. He had made some female friends through school and work, and he said that he felt like there might be someone out there who was a better fit for him. I said I did not want to do a trial separation, as I don't believe you can work on something if you aren't living together. If he wanted to separate, it would be final. He understood, but said it was something he had to do. After being away for only 2 days, we rebooked our flight home, flew home, and he packed some belongings and left. 7 days later, he asked to come home, and we started marriage counseling. He had a lot of trouble admitting he had at least one emotional affair. The counseling was not helpful. He was defensive and not open to it. I suspect something physical happened with the other woman, but I don't have any proof. He had deleted all his flirty texts, Snapchats, etc., so I couldn't see them. After 4 weeks of living together again and attending counseling sessions, he decided he no longer wanted to try to save the marriage and he was leaving. He packed up and left a few hours later. He stayed with a friend, found a new apartment, and signed a 1-year lease. I was devastated and even had to take time off work to process what had happened and attend individual counseling. After 4 weeks, I started to feel a little bit better. I went out for drinks with a group of 4 coworkers that live in my area and found I really enjoyed one of them, 42 male, a lot. I had only met him over Zoom before this. We started seeing each other a couple of times a week. Quite quickly, it grew into a truly amazing, loving relationship. I've stayed in counseling as it wasn't easy to process the sudden ending of my long-term marriage at the same time as beginning something new. It's been about 7 months now. My ex-husband eventually decided he wanted to try to save the marriage again, but I declined. He says I'm the jerk for starting a new relationship so quickly, within 6 weeks of him leaving. Our relationship was over as I can no longer trust him, and he's hurt me immensely. I do not want a relationship with someone I can't trust. Am I the jerk for moving on? Not the jerk. He left you twice. I guess you were supposed to just sit around wallowing in tears while he went off doing whatever and whoever until he was ready to come back to you. Gosh, if only he hadn't cheated, broken up with you on your anniversary, quit therapy, broke up with you again, moved out, got a divorce. Yeah, this is all your fault. Not the jerk. Go live your best life. Not the jerk. He literally said he felt there'd be a better woman for him somewhere else. He's cheated on you probably multiple times, so he doesn't have the right to be mad at you for moving on when he couldn't even stay faithful to you. He can't try to get rid of you and then want you again. Am I the jerk for excluding my daughter's best friend from her birthday party? I'm 36, female. My daughter, who's 13, her birthday was last weekend. There's this trampoline park in town that offers sleepover parties where the kids can play for a few hours, watch a movie, and have a sleepover on the trampoline. Her school is very small, so there are only 20 students in her entire year. When we were booking the event, she said to only book 19 spots. I asked her if she was sure she wasn't missing out someone, but she assured me that there were only 19 kids in her class and I was just misremembering. Fast forward to her birthday, and this girl, Camila, shows up with an entire box full of gifts: teddy bears, perfume, candles, nail polish, flour, chocolates, etc. I remember picking up my kid from school at the beginning of the school year and seeing her chatting and being very friendly with Camila, so I assumed they were quite good friends. When Camila went up to hug my daughter and wish her a happy birthday, she lightly pushed her away and told Camila she couldn't attend as we forgot to book her place. I apologized to Camila and her mother and offered to talk to the people in charge and pay for her place, but my daughter insisted that Camila couldn't come. Camila was very distraught over this and started crying. I pulled my daughter aside and asked her why Camila couldn't join, even though they used to be friendly and she'd invited over every other student in her class. She said that Camila was just really weird, obsessive, and creepy, and she didn't want to be friends with her anymore. I asked her if Camila was bullying her, and she said no, she just didn't want to be around Camila. Camila's mother had found out about the party through another parent and Camila decided to surprise my daughter knowing she hadn't been given an invite. I returned the gifts to Camila, apologized again, and gently told her that there weren't enough spaces. Her mother started screaming at me, telling me that I was a grown adult bullying her daughter. I told her that it was my daughter's birthday party. She could invite whoever she wanted. She accused me of raising my daughter to be a bully and that she couldn't just invite the entire class and exclude one girl. She claimed that Camila was my daughter's best friend and she had the right to be invited. I told her that my daughter's a teenager, not a 5-year-old. She can't be forced to invite the entire class just to be nice. I said that I didn't want to raise a doormat. I didn't want to teach her to value the feelings of others at the expense of her own. If my daughter feels uncomfortable around someone, then I prioritize her well-being over that of a stranger's. Camila's mother is now talking to the teachers to punish my daughter for bullying. I've tried explaining to her that my daughter was simply setting her boundaries. She shouldn't have to face consequences for that. Camila's mother said that I was an evil jerk who took joy in bullying kids. Am I the jerk? You're the jerk. The real issue here is your daughter lied to you about the class size so she could exclude this one person. It's possible that Camila makes your daughter uncomfortable, but it's also possible that your daughter is being unnecessarily mean. With teenagers, it could go either way. I think you should go to the school and find out what's going on. You have no way of knowing if your daughter actually is being a bully until you find out for yourself. If she is bullying Camila, you need to know so you can correct her behavior. Don't be so quick to believe your daughter is innocent here. Someone told Camila she could come to this party. Ask yourself this question: how did Camila know where the party was and what time it started? What your daughter did was mean. She invited the entire class with one exclusion. Your daughter is the bully. You're the jerk for not shutting down the party right then and there for your daughter lying to you about how many kids were in her class. Yes, she can invite who she wants if she does it openly and honestly. She didn't. She lied to you. And no, your daughter wasn't setting boundaries. She was cruel to one kid. I suspect she made a big deal out of giving out the invites as well, given that Camila knew exactly where and what time the party was at. 100% agree. I was the Camila when I was in school. All the girls in the class were invited to the birthday parties except me because I was a bit weird. It destroyed me, along with the other bullying, and destroyed my confidence and self-esteem for years. Controversial but honest discourse here. I was also a Camila, but I'm on OP's side. My daughter is also a weird kid. She's about to be 13. I told my daughter that other kids see weird as bad. It isn't, but many of these other kids are still trying to figure themselves out and be comfortable in their own skin. Anyone that feels confident being different is a threat to their sense of self and tends to get shunned. Expect that. The friends you do make will be better, even if you don't have as many temporary friends as the other kids seem to have. Just be yourself anyway. I don't see how forcing your daughter to include Camila would do any good. When that happened to me and I was forced to be included in things, it was just an excuse for the other kids to bully me. They didn't want me there, and it was clear I was only there to appease parents. It just allowed for more direct bullying. I stand firmly by what I told my daughter. Being weird is perfectly okay. I'm weird, she's weird, it's great. But other people are going to be jerks about it, so ignore them and move on. Am I the jerk for embarrassing my wife in front of our friends by not going along with her lie? When my wife and I got married, we were both working. Once our first kid was born, she wanted to quit. Completely her decision. I started working more to compensate, and she started taking care of the house and the kid. I'm a pretty clean person, and I help whenever I could or if she asked. I'm an involved parent. Then we had another kid, and I started working even more. At the end of 2019, my wife flew to her home country to visit her parents. Airports were shut down, and all the flights were canceled before she could come back. There was a lot of red tape to unravel here, and we couldn't get her back home until May. Like I said, the only reason I didn't do household work was because I was working too much, and I discussed that with my wife, and she was also okay with taking care of the household. I've lived alone for several years, and until she quit her job, I always did my share of everything. I am pretty far from helpless. At first, I freaked out a little, as I couldn't work from home and I had kids, 7 and 2, to take care of. In the end, I figured it out. I was stretched a little, but it was nothing unmanageable. My wife came back home in the beginning of May 2020. She was very happy to be back home, and we were all happy to have her back. There didn't seem to be any problem. A few weeks ago, we are having family dinner at our house with one of our couple friends when my wife told them that I was miserable without her, that the kids were miserable, that the house was a disaster, that she had so much stuff to clean up, etc. She basically said that I was helpless without her and that I couldn't take care of anything while she was gone. I kinda chuckled awkwardly. I told her that the kids and I were definitely miserable sometimes because we missed her, but nothing other than that was true. I told her not to lie about me or my ability to take care of the kids. After dinner, she was extremely mad at me and told me that I was a jerk and that I should have just played along. She told me that she felt awful that I could manage everything without her, and she felt that we didn't need her and that she was insignificant. I obviously tried to tell her that it wasn't the case, but she kept yelling at me and made me sleep on the couch. Here's the thing, just because she isn't employed doesn't mean she can't work/doesn't know how to work. Similarly, just because I don't do things now doesn't mean I can't do it. I think it's demeaning to have me pretend that I am a man-child who has to be babied and doesn't know how to do basic things and can't take care of my own kids just so that she can feel better about herself. I don't think it's right to portray me as an incompetent person because she feels insecure. However, she is still really upset and I'm not so sure anymore. Am I the jerk? Am I the jerk for not going along with the lie? Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk or not? Please let us know. Reminds me of when I go somewhere and I come back to this pigsty. Sure, Karen, whatever you say. Entitled mom sells me a broken guitar because her baby can't play it. This story happened some years ago while I was living in the East Coast. I was driving back home from a friend's house and decided to take a detour through one of the more nicer neighborhoods because it was the beginning of fall and I'm just a sucker for the scenery. While driving, I just so happened to find another thing that I go crazy for, a garage sale. With me having some money on hand, I decided that this was fate and pulled over to check it out. At first, I didn't really see anything special, just the kind of stuff you would expect to see at any garage sale. Old furniture, clothes, DVDs, and other small items. But then, in the corner of my eye, I saw something that I just didn't expect to see, a guitar. I went in for a closer look, expecting it to be some kind of cheap beginner guitar, the kind with a brand name you don't recognize. But no, what stood before me was an actual Gibson Les Paul. Side note, to those who don't know, Gibson is a very prestigious guitar brand name, and Les Paul is probably their most famous model type. This model of guitar is legendary for being the weapon of choice among god-level rock stars. For example, Slash from Guns N' Roses, or Ace Frehley from Kiss. Now back to the story. She was beautiful. And yes, I refer to guitars as she. She was golden color with the white trim and looked kind of old, but in really good condition. But what got me in an actual state of shock was the price tag. It said the price was $50. I couldn't help but think that this person selling it forgot to add another zero to the end of the price, as well as a 1 to the beginning. So I picked up the guitar and went up to the woman handling the sale to ask her about it. She didn't really look like a typical entitled parent, but her attitude and body language just radiated entitlement. It was like her aura was almost made out of pure smugness and hatred for the working class. Just by talking to her, I couldn't help but feel that she was the kind of soccer mom that you would expect to yell at the coach, as well as the referee, other parents, and maybe some of the kids. But I digress. We've got me and we've got entitled mom. Me. Excuse me, ma'am. Can I ask you about this guitar? The price says it's $50. Is that correct? Entitled mom. Yes, that's correct. Me. Well, that's an unusually good price. Is there a reason for that? Yes, it's broken. I figured someone could use it like a decoration in their man cave or something. Hearing that just broke my heart, but it also got me curious because I couldn't find anything physically wrong with the guitar. No cracks or any other signs of damage. I started asking more questions, thinking maybe I could fix her later. However, it was at this moment that any and all logic began to die and roll downhill away from me. Me. Can I ask what's wrong with it? Yes, my baby can't play it. Excuse me? My son, he says it's unplayable. Me. Oh, does he work with guitars? Like a technician or something? Oh no, he can't work. My baby is only 12. Hearing that stunned me for a quick second, but I then decided to try to give the benefit of the doubt. I don't know this kid, so maybe he was one of those young musical virtuosos who got accepted to Juilliard early or something. Me. So, I take it your son is musically talented? Oh, very much so. He plays that Guitar Hero game all the time. Me. What? Oh, you know, that game where you play music. He's constantly playing that game and is always getting the high score on it. I kept a straight face, but my mind was turning into that meme of the woman trying to do math. Me. So, because of that, you got him a guitar? Well, of course. When you have a child as gifted as mine, it's important that you nurture their gifts. Me. So, you think he knows what he's doing? He obviously knows what he's doing. So if he says it's broken, it's broken. Listening to her talk made my brain hurt, but it also helped me decide to take the chance and buy the guitar. While paying, the woman went on a long, insane rant about how the guitar was actually a gift from the kid's late grandfather from the dad's side of the family, and how he must not like her son because he gave him an old hand-me-down guitar instead of a brand new one. Hearing all this legitimately upset me, but I just decided to keep my mouth shut and leave. After getting home, I immediately took the guitar, plugged her into my amp, retuned her, that was all the maintenance she needed, and played a few notes and chords. To my amazement, she sounded perfect. It felt as if her soul was singing the praises of freedom. I spent the rest of the day playing and tripping out that not only have I purchased my first ever Gibson Les Paul, but I also only paid $50 for it. But the story doesn't end here. A few weeks later, I made a friend at a party who was an actual guitar technician. I told him my story, and he said if I wanted, he could appraise my guitar and tell me her true value. I took him up on the offer, and the results blew me away. It turns out my baby was a vintage Les Paul from 1973, retailing at well over $3,000. He then asked me if I were interested in selling, but I told him there was absolutely no way I'm ever letting go of her. But the story still doesn't end here. Shortly after getting my baby appraised, I get word from a friend who turns out works in the same office building with the husband of Entitled Mom. She updates me about what she learned, and apparently Entitled Mom's husband is of course righteously furious. It turns out not only did Entitled Mom sell a very expensive guitar for just $50 that was a gift from his father to her spoiled kid, but she also sold it without him knowing. Not only that, my friend informs me that Entitled Mom has also been looking for me. My friend tells me that Entitled Mom wants to find me so she can demand the guitar back, not offer to buy it or even pay back what I paid. She wants to demand that I give it back for free because apparently I scammed her out of a priceless family heirloom and robbed her kid's ability to play music. My friend said she didn't say anything about her knowing me, but then asked me if I wanted her to say anything to them about who I was. I tell her absolutely not. If she wants a guitar, she can buy a new one with the money I gave her, just like she planned. And I agree that this guitar is a family heirloom, but it's my family heirloom. Sorry, Entitled Mom, but if it means anything, if you're reading this, I named her Karen. Have you ever played a guitar? Or how about any other music instruments? Please let us know. Stop messing with my thermostat. Dude, this is not your house. For the last months, I've been working as an intern in the HR department of a middle-sized company, and while it has been mostly an uneventful job, there have been some really peculiar moments. Most people up north may be suffering from a white Christmas, but down here in the equator, we are melting from the heat. And in a highly humid town like the one I live in, it feels like the Amazon rainforest. Well, maybe that's because we are actually in the border of the Amazon rainforest. This would make you think any building will have their own air conditioning units working full-time on full power, no? Well, not if Mr. Jeremy Johnson, our protagonist, could prevent it. Every day, Jeremy was the first to get in the building, enter the office he shared with the other 5 guys, and set the thermostat to a not-so-refreshing 25 degrees Celsius, 77 degrees Fahrenheit. The device was on his workplace, so he basically had full control over it. When any of his coworkers complained about it still being really hot, he would set it to 20 degrees Celsius, 68 Fahrenheit, for about 10 minutes and then return it to his loved 25. If they changed it themselves, he would set it back once they returned to their desk. As childish as this may sound, this game lasted for about a month until an HR representative, your sweet narrator here present, had to intervene because this was getting out of hands. Formal complaints were done, and the screaming matches were getting worse and worse, with people in other departments commenting on the issue. So, normal first step. I interview the 5 guys, and they describe the problem I just told you about. Cue to the funny part, my interview with Jeremy. I will try to recreate it the best I can, although I may be a little biased. Me. Hey, Mr. Jeremy. I am Latina Cinderella from HR. How are you? Jeremy. Fine. Me. So, let's cut to the chase. About the thermostat. What about it? Me. I described to him the complaints against him. Having said this, we need to find a solution.
A solution for what? The only problem here is that these kids can't handle a little bit of heat.
A detail I forgot to include is that while Jeremy is in his early 40s, his coworkers are in between 24 to 30. Me. Yeah, but that's the reason we have the air conditioning, sir, so that the workers can be as comfortable as they can.
It's expensive.
Me. Our energy budget is able to cover for it. That's nothing you should worry about. In case we need to make cuts, we will tell you.
Well, I can't handle the cold. It triggers my allergies.
Me. Maybe we can arrange a place change so that you are not close to the air vent, and I don't know, maybe you can bring a thin sweater so that you don't get too cold.
I don't like sweaters. I'm fine with the way I have the thermostat. Why should I change it?
Me. Because you are not alone in your office, Mr. Jeremy, and we can't let this fight affect your work environment.
I really don't get all the drama. I keep the same temperature at home and none of my kids complain or are allowed to change it. It should be the same here.
I think at this point, my face just made the most what the heck expression imaginable because I could not believe the argument he had just said. Me. Sorry, mister, this is not your house. This is your workplace, and those are not your kids, but your adult coworkers.
Then they should act like it.
Me. Okay, that's all I needed to hear. We will tell you what measures would be taken. Have a good afternoon. So, after that weird conversation, I talked to my supervisor, and in the end, it was decided that Mr. Jeremy had two options. 1. Change places in the office and leave the thermostat in the hands of the other guys, meaning he needed to deal with the cold. Or moving to our backup office, basically an adapted supply closet, basically used for extra personnel we sometimes hired, also used occasionally as a file warehouse, and whose only ventilation was a small fan, no windows. Surprisingly enough, Mr. Jeremy chose the first option, and while he is constantly nagging about his cold feet, at least they are not fighting anymore. Speaking of thermostat, what do you like to leave your thermostat on? Please let us know.
I like it really cold.
I sold a guy an arcade machine at a store I don't work at. So, my wife's Christmas present was a gift card to a well-known sporting goods store to get herself new shoes. We went in today, and at the front desk of the store were a few of those arcade one-up machines that have become popular lately. I asked my wife if she'd be okay with me playing some Pac-Man instead of helping her find shoes. She agreed, and don't worry, I used hand sanitizer before and after playing. While in the middle of my game, I'm approached by another guy. I'm in my late 20s, he's older than me, but I don't think he could have been older than 45. He casually walks up to me and says, "Having a good game?" Me. Yeah, actually I'm not doing too bad. Him.
I bet it plays terrible compared to the real thing.
Me. Actually, no, you'd be surprised. It's pretty darn close. Him.
Really?
Me. Yeah, the code is the same and the picture is pretty clear. So the only thing to worry about is input lag, and that's really low. Him.
Wow, I didn't realize these were so good. Too bad they only play one game.
Me. Actually, this one has about 10 games installed.
Really?
I lose intentionally so I can give him the grand tour of the machine. Yeah, see? When you boot it up, you can pick between all these games, and if you want more, these things are really easy to modify to add more. Him. Very interested by now.
You can modify these?
Me. Yeah, in fact, these arcade one-up machines are popular choices for arcade enthusiasts who want to play MAME but don't want to build their own cabinet because these are affordable and leave a small footprint in your house. Him.
So, the price is fair?
Me. I certainly think so. I mean, speaking for myself, I built my own cabinet. I pull out my phone and show him the pictures. But in all, it costs a bit more than this does. So if you don't want to build one and you're okay with the limitations this gives you, I think it's worth it. Him, after a pause.
You know what? I want one.
This was pretty cool to hear, but it crossed my mind that he might have thought I was an employee trying to pass a sale on him. That's great, sir, but I should warn you, I don't actually work here. See, my wife needs shoes, and I'm just playing games to pass the time. He didn't seem to mind.
I'll go find someone to help me buy this then.
He turns and leaves, and calls behind his shoulder.
Have a good game.
That was about 10 minutes ago. As I'm writing this, he and an employee are busy loading the box into his truck. Am I the jerk for backing out of an agreement I never made? 2 months ago, my dad, 54, male, approached me with an opportunity to buy a female Labrador puppy from his friend, Let's call him Joe, who shows and breeds pedigree Labradors. According to my dad, Joe was offering me the Labrador puppy for a heavily discounted rate, $80, because I was his friend's daughter. Nothing else was mentioned to me about why the puppy was so cheap, but I assumed my dad's friend Joe was just being generous. Looking back, I was definitely naive, but I had been wanting a Labrador pup for a long time, and the offer was just too good to pass up. That same day, I drove over 2 hours to Joe's farm to collect my 3-month-old Labrador puppy and signed the paperwork transferring the ownership of the pup to me. Joe never mentioned anything else about the terms of the sale, and I never signed any other paperwork or contract regarding further terms. I want to stress that in the period directly after the sale, neither Joe or my dad discussed with me the apparent extra terms I had supposedly agreed to. Until recently, I mentioned to my dad that I had booked Jennifer, name of pup, to get fixed next month, and my dad immediately told me I had to cancel. He went on to explain that he had agreed, on my behalf, to allow Joe to use my Labrador to breed more pups for him to sell. This is apparently why I was able to buy Jennifer for such a discounted rate. I was shocked, but frankly not surprised, since my dad has a long history of neglecting to mention important details and lying by omission. As far as I'm concerned, I never agreed to those terms, so I'm not bound to them. Dad and Joe may have had a verbal agreement, but I am the legal owner of Jennifer, and there was no verbal or written agreement between me and Joe, so I don't care. I called Joe and made it crystal clear to him that I absolutely was not planning to breed her, let alone give him the puppies to sell. He was upset, called me a few choice names, and demanded I pay back the difference between the discounted rate and the normal rate for Jennifer. I refused because I legally own the pup now, and the sale is over. If he wanted me to breed my dog, he should have talked to me about this personally because I was the buyer, not my dad. Joe is apparently fuming. My dad is angry because he doesn't understand why it's a big deal, and other extended family members who know Joe think I'm being a jerk and should at least pay him back the difference. But I honestly just don't feel like I'm obligated to. It's their fault, especially Joe, for not mentioning these extra terms to me before the sale. He's the seller, and he should know better when conducting his business. Also, according to the agreement, I would have to breed my dog whenever Joe wanted, so I'm guessing non-stop. Plus, Joe would not have to pay for her medical expenses, and all that would come out of my pocket. Hard pass. Once a bookseller, always a bookseller, except to entitled jerks. This story is a few years old, but still a solid block of what the heck in my brain. Characters. We've got Bob, Karen's poor husband who doesn't do much at all. We've got Blackbeard, the manager. He was there when I worked there and is known for being a no-crap-taking guy. And we've got me. Backstory. I was a bookseller for almost a decade, but left for a high-paying Monday through Friday 9 to 5. I had loved my job. After I left, I still frequented the bookstores in the chain a lot, browsing shelves, checking out new titles, and catching up with old coworkers. The story. I'm in my old store. It's in an area that has access to a number of posh neighborhoods. It's been maybe 3 to 4 years since I left. The staff has gone through its 6th turnover, and only a small handful of employees that I worked with are still there. I'm in jeans, my university sweatshirt, had my purse over my shoulder, and my cell phone out, with earbuds in with bands like Five Finger Death Punch, Die Antwood, and In This Moment lined up in for my ears. Very clearly a customer. There is no uniform here, just business casual clothes with a lanyard that holds a name tag. I'm perusing through the sci-fi and fantasy section. I have 2 books selected already, and I'm looking for a few more. My limit is 5 books, or no more than $60. One of the employees, one that I don't know, comes up to ask if I need any help. I say that I do, and tell him that I used to work there, and I'm looking for a couple more books. I tell him what type of books I like, and he recommends a few good titles. We end up chatting more about the genre in general, about the classic authors, etc. I thank him, and he goes on his way, and I'm 2 books richer. I move on to the mystery section, and I picked up an empty basket to put my books in when I feel it. That hard few pokes executed by a bony digit tipped with a long acrylic nail. Then the words, Karen, excuse me? And there she is, that dark root blonde bobbed hair, the 3/4 yoga pants matching workout top, pristine white sneakers, wristlet purse, and the latest iPhone. Her husband is a goose-looking, tired kin style of a man, hands in his pockets. Me, taking out an earbud. What? Karen,
That's not how you greet a customer. So rude.
Me. Look who's talking. Karen.
What did you say to me?
Me. What do you want? And I don't work here, by the way.
Yes, you do. I heard you chatting with that other employee over there. I need this book.
She presented her iPhone that indeed had a picture of a book. Me. I don't work here, lady. Back the heck up.
What did you say to me? How dare you? You're required to help me. I'm a paying customer.
Me. I'm not required to do anything. I turned my back on her and moved further down the aisle, hoping she'd take the hint. Nope. Instead, she grabs the back of my hoodie and yanks me back. Me. What the heck is your problem, lady? I don't work here. I'm in jeans and a sweatshirt. I have my purse. I was listening to music, for goodness sake.
I know you work here. I've seen you working here before.
I used to work here years ago, but I don't anymore, so back up.
You're still obligated to help me. It's part of your code.
Me. Say what?
Your code. You have to help me or I'll speak to your manager and get you banned and fined.
I'm staring now at this bleach blonde lunatic, then at her husband with a, is she serious with this crap? Look, he can't even look at me. Me, thinking about Reddit here. Fine, do it. I'll get a manager. Let's see who gets in trouble. I flag down an employee and ask for a manager. When they ask why, I tell them we just need a manager. The employee shrugs, gets on their portable store phone, and calls for a manager who comes over. We'll call him Blackbeard. Blackbeard.
Hi, what seems to be the problem?
Karen, of course, starts her spewing, yammering on about how I insulted her, called her names, and refused to assist her. She plays no tears, just rage. Blackbeard.
Ma'am, please, there's no need for that kind of language or that level of volume.
He turned to me.
Miss, can you tell me what happened?
I gave him my version, trying to hide my smirk. Blackbeard. He's staring at Karen now like she's an idiot.
Ma'am, she doesn't work here. I can help you find your book, but you can't go around harassing people, be they employee or customer, even if they used to work here.
Karen said some other things. Blackbeard.
Ma'am, you have 3 choices. 1, pipe down and I'll help you out. 2, keep going and I'll have you removed and banned. Or 3, just leave. Your choice.
Karen and Blackbeard had a staring match that lasted a good 15 seconds. Karen left with a scowl, and Blackbeard and I shared a small high five. I finished up my shopping, Blackbeard letting me use his employee discount. I went to a restaurant next, ate and read, and as I enjoyed a cheesecake dessert, I wondered what kind of code Karen was talking about and where the heck she had heard it. The end. Speaking of books, what was the last book you read? Please let us know. Am I the jerk for blowing up on my wife for spending $8,000 on a motorcycle for my stepson? I've been with my wife for over 6 years. I have a 17-year-old stepson and a biological 22-year-old son. The family had ups and downs just like any other family. My son is getting married in February. I have put some money aside to help him out as a gift from me for his wedding. I've already talked to him about it, and he and his fiancée said they'd appreciate it very much. My son deserves it because before his mom passed, he took over her care and spent nights at the hospital with her. He cried many times because her passing broke him. I'm glad he found happiness again. My stepson is a motorcyclist. It started off as a hobby. He has posters of all kinds of motorcycles, pictures of famous racers and motorcyclists. He has a group of friends he calls brothers, and they ride together and wear some kind of bracelets that represent the group. He always does 3D art and logos, which I find stunning, to be honest. He's talented, no question about it. Anyway, before Christmas, his mom told me she wanted to get him a motorcycle as a Christmas gift, and he'd love it so much. I told her I can't afford it, and that maybe she should think of another gift for him. Everything was fine until Christmas Day, while we were exchanging gifts. My stepson received a small box from my wife that had a key in it. We were confused. She told him to go outside, and we all followed, and then I saw a brand new motorcycle in the driveway. I started wondering where she got the money. I didn't bring it up right then and there. I waited a bit. I asked my wife, and she told me that she took $8,000 from the account to buy the motorcycle. I lost it. I blew up on her and asked if she was kidding me. $8,000. That's the money I put aside for my son's wedding. She said that I needed to calm down, but the money was already gone. My son showed up and asked what was wrong. I couldn't tell him his stepmom took the money that was meant for him to buy an expensive motorcycle that I'm sure my stepson will throw in the garage just like he did the old ones in a very short time. So far, he had 2 motorcycles that ended up being damaged. Those motorcycles cost us so much money other than paying for spares and parts that needed repairing. I told my wife she has 2 days to return the motorcycle and get the money back, and she defended herself, saying she can't do that because it would be devastating for my stepson and that he'll resent me if he knew I made her return the motorcycle. I told her that I was ready to talk to him and explain if that's what it takes, and she started crying, saying I was okay with my stepson's spirit crushing like that. I told her it was her fault for taking money in the first place without telling me. She went upstairs and stayed there the entire night. I haven't even talked to my son yet, and it's so exhausting since my wife says I'm being cruel to my stepson. Problem is, she says my stepson will resent me if I return the motorcycle. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his wife? Please let us know. Am I the jerk for not defending my husband when my parents berated him? So, what happened has caused a huge conflict, and most of my family members have pretty much cut contact with me. I'm female 28, and my sister, who's 25, miscarried last week. It was so horrible for her and her husband, as this is the second time that this has happened to them. My sister spent the following days at her home, feeling exhausted and depressed, and I called her to check on her, but she kept the conversation short. My mom was very concerned and decided to invite her and her husband for dinner on Sunday to get her to feel better, and also since the family wanted to see my sister and support her. So mom thought having a family dinner was a good idea. On Thursday, I found out I was pregnant, but I didn't tell anyone, thinking the time wasn't right, so only me and my husband knew about it. We got there. My husband was surprised to see the whole family was there, saying he didn't expect that. I sat with my sister before dinner. She looked like a mess. We cried together, and I absolutely felt sorrow and how she was struggling with her loss. After that, we all started having dinner. While everyone was talking casually, my husband called for everyone's attention, said he wanted to take a minute to announce that I was pregnant and that we had found out this week. I was shocked, speechless. Everyone started congratulating me while my sister got up and literally walked outside. Her husband followed her. My parents were the only ones who didn't move. They just stared at me and my husband disgusted. A few minutes later, her husband came back inside to get her bag and they left. Things got quiet. My aunt, cousin, and her family started leaving. I wanted to leave, but my dad told us to stay because he wanted to talk to my husband. I knew there was going to be a crap show since my husband has a history with him. My father lost it. He yelled at my husband and called what he did insensitive and inappropriate. My husband wanted me to defend him, but I just sat there while my dad was raising his voice for being disrespectful and inconsiderate and a jerk. My husband responded with bringing up past issues, saying they were playing favorites, and told them that because of this, they will never see his kid. He got kicked out by my dad. We got home, and my husband blew up on me for not defending him, but I yelled at him that what he did was very wrong and that my sister will most likely never talk to me again, thinking I was behind this. We argued for a few minutes, and he told me to buzz off and slam the door to go be with his buddies after I told him to fix his anger issues. Info. I told my husband to not tell anyone about my pregnancy, but he thought since the whole family was there that this was a perfect time. He completely disregarded everyone's feelings. I know he's my husband, but they're my family, and they were hurt. My dad was hurt. Well, what do you think? Should OP have stood up for her husband or not? Please let us know. I think leaving him might be a better option. Even I wouldn't do something like he did. Am I the jerk for telling my roommate her aspirations of becoming an influencer are pathetic? I've lived with a couple for a little over a year and a half. I'm in my early 20s, they're in their early 30s. The boyfriend works 2 minimum wage jobs, at least 50 hours a week, in order to provide for the two of them, as the girlfriend is striving to be an influencer and doesn't have a job. She spends most of her time taking pictures to post on Instagram and DMing brands trying to get sponsorships. So far, no income has come from this. Last week, the boyfriend had a complete breakdown while the girlfriend wasn't home and tells me he's exhausted from being extremely overworked. He's straight up sobbing, saying that even though he's working back-to-back shifts, he still isn't making enough money to support the both of them and, which I didn't know about until now, her frivolous spending. He even had to ask his parents to help with this month's rent. I felt really bad for the guy. Skip forward to last night, and I'm sitting chatting with the girlfriend, and the topic of money came up. She started to complain that they weren't making enough money for her to do the things she wanted to do. I politely asked her if getting a job and doing the Instagram thing on the side was an option,
and she immediately got defensive. She told me that, of course, that isn't an option, and that she shouldn't have to put her dreams on hold. Confused, I asked her what dreams those are. She said to inspire people, and then I said, which I probably shouldn't have, to do nothing? She got really offended and said there's so much that goes into it that I could never understand. I mean, the girl takes pictures of lattes and her in yoga poses. She doesn't even edit them, just uses the default filters on the app. I didn't want to argue about the logistics of influencing, so I instead brought up my concern for her boyfriend and told her that I think he may be overworking himself. He's not happy, and he needs her help to support them financially. She says, "Well, I don't understand why we both have to be unhappy. At least one of us is pursuing our aspirations." To that, I said, "Well, if your aspirations are to do nothing while your partner busts their butt to support you, then your aspirations are pretty pathetic." Later that evening, I get a text from the boyfriend saying that what I said crossed a line, and now because of me, she thinks that he believes she does nothing and her dreams are pathetic. I feel bad, but wow, I couldn't just sit by and bite my tongue. Am I the jerk? Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk or not? Please let us know. Sometimes we're justified to be jerks. This may be one of those special occasions. Met my biological parents today. So for some backstory, I'm adopted. My biological parents gave me up at birth. My adopted parents adopted me when I was young, but was always open about my adoption and everything. They never kept anything about it away from me and always told me the truth when I had questions about my adoption. I never had too many questions about my adoption though, as I just wanted to believe that my adoptive parents were the people who gave birth to me. I, 16 female, had the opportunity to meet my biological parents the other day. It was my choice whether I wanted to or not, and I decided to meet them. I thought that maybe there was a chance that my biological parents weren't heartless jerks, and that maybe they were just falling on hard times and couldn't support a kid, and that now they were doing better and wanted to actually form a bond with me. How wrong I was. My biological parents and my adoptive parents talk it out and set up a date and time to meet up, and my adoptive parents relay it all to me to make sure I was okay with everything. For the most part, I was just agreeing with everything because I was nervous not to make a bad first impression. After a little bit of talking and discussing, a time and date had been settled on. Directly 2 weeks from now at a restaurant called Texas Roadhouse, the fanciest restaurant we have where I live. A week before I have to go meet my biological parents, my adopted mom took me shopping at the mall for some new clothes. I've never been too fond of dresses and stuff, and my adoptive mom knew this, and so instead of taking me to someplace like Kohl's or Claire's, she took me to Hot Topic and Spencer's, where we found a couple fancy things that I liked, and that we thought my biological parents would like as well. Some time had passed, and I was getting ready to meet my biological parents. I put on the clothes and hopped into my adoptive parents' car so they could take me there. The plan was that my adoptive parents would drop me off, and they would hang around the area so that if something happened, they could get to me quickly. We get there, and after a small pep talk from my adoptive parents, we go into the restaurant and meet my biological parents. Right off the bat, as my biological parents looked at me, they mumbled stuff under their breath, which I can hardly assume was about my outfit. My biological parents themselves looked like your typical snooty rich parents, as they were decked out in all type of jewelry, fancy clothes, etc. Already, I was getting a bad vibe from them. We agreed, and after like a minute, my adoptive parents leave so that me and my biological parents could eat and get to know each other. So me and my biological parents get escorted to a table and sit down. A couple seconds pass, and my biological mother says something. "So, how are you liking your life so far?" Me. It's good. Good. My biological dad then chirps in. "Tell us about it." Me. There's not much to tell you about. I live as I presume any normal kid would. Biological mom. "Okay. Do you have a boyfriend?" I freeze at this question. I'm not straight, and although I normally am not afraid to show it, I was this time. My biological parents looked like very judgmental people, and I didn't want to have a bad first impression. After a couple seconds of silence, I give the best answer I could. No. I told them I didn't have a boyfriend, which technically wasn't lying. The rest of the day goes pretty much exactly like this, just with a couple typical Karen things thrown in by my mom. She would constantly snap and call over waiters, treat the staff like crap, etc. All of this was pretty bad, and I wanted to call my adoptive parents and leave, but for whatever reason decided not to. An hour or two of awkward entitlement pass, and just as I was about to finish my food, my biological parents say something I will never forget. Biological mom. OP, we need your help with something. You have a biological brother who is currently in the hospital. He got into a car crash a couple days before we contacted you. He needs a kidney transplant, and your dad and I have both offered up ours, but we weren't matches. The only person who does have a match is you. We hope you're willing to give up your kidney for your brother. This broke me. I now knew why they all of a sudden wanted to meet up with me. They didn't want to form a relationship with me or get to know me. They wanted to use me to save their actual son. I did not know I had a brother. At that point, I frankly did not care. I told them no. They abandoned me as a kid, and 16 years later, they want me to save a brother I never knew existed? I told them no and walked out. I walked out of the restaurant and called my adoptive parents, my real parents. I told them to come pick me up, and they said they were at the Target right next door to me and said to wait in the car or come look for them in the store. I opted for the car. I didn't want to be around anyone at that point, so I just walked and searched for my adoptive parents' car. My biological parents probably came after me, but I don't know that for sure, as when I left the restaurant driveway, I didn't look back. After about 20 minutes in the car crying, my adoptive parents come and immediately noticed that I was crying, despite my best efforts to hide it. They asked what was wrong, and I told them everything. They seemed just as upset as I was, but comforted and consoled me at the time. I'm glad I'm adopted, because as far as I'm concerned, my real and only parents are my adopted ones. Huge revenge on an awful boss that fired me during lockdown. 2020 was an awful year for me. Among many other things, I was fired by the place I worked at for over 3 years. It was not a nice, fancy job by any means. I was just a store manager at a small business that was still run like a mom and pop shop, despite the owner not living close enough for it to truly be a mom and pop run. To compensate for not being able to be in each store every day, the owner insisted on getting updates from every store 3 times per day. As you would expect, while the business grew to about 17 locations across many states, the owner could never remember who said what or what was even said. It became too much for the owner, which created a lot of miscommunication issues within the company. Every manager was having to deal with this, but it was a bit tougher for locations like mine because we were slower, so the owner didn't care about our store as much unless they were upset. They didn't have to be upset with me, but if I was next on the phone, I was absolutely done for. I could outperform our goal, and it still wasn't good enough. Not an exaggeration, as it happened many times. It had been this way forever, but it got especially bad leading up to me getting fired because of new hires messing up at multiple different locations. So, for nothing but poor timing, multiple other managers and I found ourselves on thin ice, even though we did not house any of these new hires. The owner, during lockdown, was constantly bragging about how the business was doing even better actually this year than any other year. But then, a week after their latest brag, they informed me that I would be taking a pay cut to match the other store managers for the week I had just worked. Illegal to cut my pay after I've already worked it, and going forward. Naturally, I asked why, as I created their website/online store and was doing all website work for them, which is what led to my pay raise. When I asked, the owner made excuses, saying that it's not fair that I get paid more than other managers. So I reminded them that I'm doing more work than the other managers. They then made an excuse and say that it's because of lockdown, so they can't afford my wage. I reminded them about the constant emails about how we are outperforming last year and that I am already taking a pay cut because my hours have gone down due to curfews. They got frustrated and said, "Why are you arguing with me? You will get paid the same as other managers." I frustratedly said, "Fine, but I'm not doing the website if I'm not getting paid for it." After this, the owner got really upset and, long story short, fired me. My financial security went out the window and I was panicking to make it through and barely did. Until these past few weeks, I had only $30 to my name outside of money for rent, and I was barely scraping by because of groceries and other bills. My direct superior was furious with the owner and defended me, which almost cost them their job as well. Fast forward to when this happened. I get another email reminding me that the domain name that the owner purchased expires today, and that if I want to keep it, I have to pay. Now, let me clear something up before I go forward. I transferred everything to them when I was fired. I left trying to hold my dignity and did not make a scene. I sent every piece of info to them over email. recommended they change all passwords after my departure, and tried to send over the domain ownership to their company account. The owner refused to make an account and take ownership for the domain name, and refused to let it be held by the admin account made for the company because multiple people accessed that. Eventually, I gave up. The owner has been paying for this domain with their card, but on my account, forwarding the traffic to their host. Well, their card expired and could not auto-renew their domain name for 2021. Until now, I decided I would never mess with it. But now that it's back to being available for purchase to the public, my friends and I bought it together for a good laugh and a big forget you to the up-and-coming business. Well, after a few drinks and a late night, I made the worst website that is honestly just one massive crap post and then gave it the domain name. So now, the domain name that is on all of their business cards, social media accounts, emails, and business transactions with suppliers leads to a super, but safe for work, unprofessional website that has the crappiest content and worst layout possible. No names were trademarked. It is not for commercial use, even if it was trademarked, and I signed nothing when I made it for them. We all had a great laugh before I crashed that night. The DNS traffic stopped forwarding to their host when I woke up the next day, and now points to my abomination of a website, and they still have yet to notice it. It's still all over their social media. If my guess is correct, they won't find out until the distributor points it out to them. They check our website frequently to make sure of its quality, or else they don't want their products sold on the website and may stop selling to the company. Have you ever had a boss treat you unfairly? If so, what did you do about it? Please let us know. One time I did. He's no longer around to tell about it. I'm the bank president, jerk. This was back in the 70s when I was in the military. I was stationed outside Little Rock, Arkansas, and found I was in need of some extra cash, so I got a job at a security company working overnight. Our cast of characters are, we've got me, we've got Suspect 1, Suspect 2, Police Officer 1, and Police Officer 2. There were 3 of us who worked security at a prominent downtown bank, one for day shift, one for swing shift, and one for night. I was the swing shift guard. On the job, we had time clocks, and we had to punch in on different areas showing we were patrolling. There was one revolver for the 3 of us, and we found out it wasn't in working order. So it was my 3rd night. I had just taken over from the older daylight guard and started making my rounds with my privately owned weapon and cleaning the duty weapon between patrols. The daylight guard didn't pass any information on and didn't write anything in the log, so I figured nothing out of the ordinary. One of the time clocks was in the main lobby behind the cashier's cage. When I entered the lobby, I noticed the vault was open, a light on, and some muffled speaking from inside. So I called for the police and proceeded to the vault. Me. Hands up, and they better be empty. They put their hands up and slowly turned to me. They were in casual attire, had cash and books out, plus a good-sized hand tote next to them. Suspect 1. What the heck do you think you're doing? Do you know who I am? Me. It appears you're stealing money and you are a thief. Suspect 1. You idiot. I'm Mr. Name, the bank president. We're doing an audit. Me. Got identification to prove that? Now this was before lanyards, and many weren't issued IDs proving their identities or where they work. Suspect 1. Not on me. My code is inside my office. I can go get it. Me. Nope. You gentlemen walk out to the lobby, sit down, and keep your hands up until the police show up. You could see the anger in Suspect 1's face, and Suspect 2 was shaking so hard I could have sworn the building was shaking. A minute later, 2 cops ran in from where the security office was. They had a key for that door, and Officer 1 asked what was going on. I told him my story, while Officer 2 went to handcuff the suspects. Officer 2. Dad? Officer 1. You recognize one? Officer 2. Yeah, my father. Hey, Barney Fife, you detained the bank president? What the heck did you think you were doing? Me. Stopping a bank robbery? I meekly said. Suspect 2 then pulled out a government ID with a badge indicating he was an auditor. He was still shaking and was so nervous he couldn't speak. The officers helped them up while I was apologizing, and Suspect 1 said they had to do a night audit for apparently there was some cash missing, and they were checking the books along with cash on hand to find out who had taken the cash or just messed up in the books. Feeling stupid, I went back to my patrolling, then wrote the incident in the daily log. The next day, I found a memo for me to come to the company office, 8th floor of the bank building, and speak with the manager of the company. I thought, this is it. I'm getting chewed out and canned. To my surprise, Suspect 1 had commended me for my diligence, my observations, and the way I handled things. The manager gave me a pat on the back for my work. I'm sorry if this was lengthy, but I do like to be thorough in my stories. Enjoy the rest of your day. If you absolutely insist that I have to move the pallet immediately, then move it I will. I'm a retail merchandiser. I assist with refits and new store setups, or sometimes just get sent to be an extra pair of hands where a store has too many people off sick or on holiday. And even during refits, we're sometimes expected to work the delivery for the aisles that we've been rearranging that night, as the store's own staff have, for obvious reasons, been unable to access them all night. On this particular shift, we'd been doing the beers, wines, and spirits section. Now this is the sort of shift where you're practically guaranteed to get some wastage. Bottle smashed, can split, it's just accepted as the price of moving literally hundreds of them in the course of a single night. All you can do is hope that you're not the one who goes home smelling like a brewery. We'd finished up the actual move and had started working on the 6 pallets of delivery as well, but the store manager was fretting. He was starting to get very antsy about our chances of finishing up and clearing the floor before the store opened for the day, and his main concern was about how we were handling the overstocks. We had absolutely blitzed the first pallet, all hands working it and it alone, in order to empty it so we could stack the overstocks onto it. As soon as the last case of booze was removed from the blue boards, we moved the overstocks onto it and then split up to work the other 5 pallets simultaneously. As we worked, we added more to the first pallet. When we're in luck, we can get the overstocks from 6 pallets of delivery onto a single pallet. By the time the manager came around, dragging a pump truck with him, the stack was about 4 boxes high, about hip height on me. It wasn't the prettiest pallet stack you've ever seen, but it was stable, while it wasn't moving. Someone had gone to fetch a roll of pallet wrap so we could move it safely, but that's the sort of thing that store staff tend to hide and guard jealously, so we knew he'd be gone a while. Manager: "What's this pallet?" Someone: "Delivery overs." Manager: "It needs to be off the floor." Someone else: "Coworker went to go get the shrink." Manager: "I want it gone now." Team leader: "It's not safe to move without wrap." Manager: "You don't need that if it's stacked properly. Move it now." At that point, he shoved the handle of the pump truck at the closest person, which was me, and he stood back to make sure that we removed the pallet from the shop floor. Now, I'm not the best pump truck operator in the world. I have a lack of proprioception that extends to anywhere that I'm pushing, pulling, carrying, or steering. Normally, I wouldn't go anywhere near a pallet of glass bottles, but everyone else backed away. They knew what would happen if anyone jacked that pallet up and tried to move it, and they wanted no part of it. The manager obviously wanted it moved though, and it was his store. So I carefully got the forks under the pallet, gently lifted it off the floor, and started moving as smoothly as I could. 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps. Enter the slalom of bakery tables and fridges between alcohol and warehouse. I surprised myself by getting past the individual rolls table without incident, but when I started to maneuver around the cream cakes fridge, I heard the unmistakable sound of bottles smashing. I looked behind me to confirm it. A corner of the pallet had decided to acquaint itself with the linoleum-covered concrete floor. The drinks were all mixed in a spreading puddle on the floor. Oh, and on the manager who had been following behind, presumably wanting his pump truck back once the pallet was stowed away, who hadn't bothered to try and stabilize the collapsing boxes. My team leader had also been following at a more sensible distance. Team leader: "Looks like it needed wrapping." Am I the jerk for making my friend upset by revealing how long it took for me to lose weight and how I lost it? I recently lost 40 pounds in the last 4 months. I feel like I'm under the healthy category for the first time in my life. A friend whom I haven't seen in over a year had to come to my city for a work-related thing. She asked me if she could stay with me and my husband. I readily agreed. In the past, every time she visited, she usually meets up with me, but prefers to stay in the hotel as that was more comfortable for her. I asked her if everything was okay. She told me that she's been dieting for the past 1 year and that she wants to stay in a place where she will be able to cook and exercise and not a hotel. I excitedly told her that even I had started dieting and exercising. She finally arrived. She was a little shocked at how much weight I had lost. I welcomed her and we got to talking. She told me that she has only lost 5 pounds and it was surprising that I lost so much. I consoled her that everyone was different and she shouldn't be discouraged. She woke up early the next day to go running and to do some cardio. I, on the other hand, slept in. I generally do intermittent fasting and walk up to 30K steps a day. I do not do any exercises other than that. My friend, however, was way more active and I was really proud of her and in awe. However, at night she was kind of mad at me and asked me whether I was having a cheat day. I told her no. She asked if walking was all I did. I told her yes. She asked me how long I've been doing this. I told her 4 months. She blew up at me. She started crying and shouting about how unfair it was that she couldn't lose any significant weight after doing so much for a year while I lost everything so easily. I was kind of shocked, but I told her that she wasn't being fair to herself and that her stamina has improved and weight isn't the only indication of her exercise. But then she kept screaming, and I told her not to yell at me at my home. I told her that she can either stop or she can leave. She left in the end. I didn't speak to her for a couple of days, but she posted a picture of herself. It looked like she started binging on lots of fast food and captioned it, "It doesn't matter what I eat, so I am not going to care anymore." I feel terrible that I have inadvertently stopped her/discouraged her even though I didn't mean to. Am I the jerk here? Is there something I should have done differently? Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk or is her friend? Please let us know. Lady claims to know the owner. The way she scurried away proved that was a lie. Hey there. Not a hotel story, but I worked as a leasing agent for an apartment complex for a few years. The owner was a fantastic guy, but he was always super late to every meeting and never had any keys to the building on him. One day, he needs to come by and pick up some tax stuff, but naturally, he's running really late, and my manager couldn't stay to wait for him. So I'm waiting for him after hours with the door unlocked when a car pulls up and 2 people get out. I'm at the front desk, so immediately I let them know that we're actually closed when the lady cuts me off and demands to see an apartment right now. So that's not how it works here. As I explained to her, I can't ever show an apartment without someone in the office, safely, and we're actually completely out of apartments to lease, which is true. We were always at 100% full because we were at a decent price point in a nice part of town. The lady stares me down and argues about how we definitely do have apartments available and that I will show her one right now. Nope, I don't budge. I can't. We don't have apartments and I can't leave the office anyway. So she tells me, in the most condescending way possible, that the owner is one of her best friends. He has promised her an apartment, and if I don't show her one right now, she'll have my job. And guess who pulls up right at that moment? The owner. I swear I could hear the cosmic laughter. So I look at the owner's brand new best friend, smile as big as I can, and chirp, "Oh, what good luck. That's the owner right there. We can ask him about that apartment he promised you and get it all cleared up." She looks outside, looks back at me, and bolts out of the office. The owner came in and asked about her, so I told him that she was one of his best friends, obviously. He just chuckled and told me that he had never promised an apartment to anyone without telling us first, and that he had never seen that lady before in his life. Not a crazy story, but just so satisfying when you can immediately call someone out on their BS. Let me tell you about the time I almost ruined someone's life. So once upon a time, I worked at a bar that featured live music almost every night, outside of Sunday, which was karaoke night. In walks a lady in her, I assume, early 60s. She sits down at the bar and orders a drink while the band is playing a bit too loud and asks for a vodka Red Bull soda. I repeat over the band, "Vodka Red Bull soda?" She smiles and says yes and asks for the special of the night. I put in the burrito and made her drink. I remember thinking it was a really weird order, but oh well. I give her the drink in a double old-fashioned glass. She gets her food and 20 minutes go by. We were particularly busy because it was one of the more popular local bands. Suddenly, my other bartender comes up to me and asks the most terrible sentence I've ever heard. "Did you put alcohol in the drink for seat W15? "Yeah, vodka soda and Red Bull." She said Red Bull soda. She said she's a recovering alcoholic, so she had to be sure. I felt my stomach drop. Now that was the worst sentence I had ever heard. I immediately ran over to her and was near tears, telling her I was so sorry and hadn't accurately heard her request over the band. This sweet lady with her wiry gray hair, glasses, and puffy blue coat grabbed my hand in both of hers and said so kindly, "I could taste it and asked the Lord to help me out. I was sitting at the bar and the band was playing, so I should have known you'd had a hard time hearing. I said you were right when you told me the order. I'm just so lucky the Lord has had my back for 15 years. Well, I was in tears at this point because I felt just so awful and kept telling her I was so sorry. She shushed me and told me it was all okay and not to worry. Of course, I comped her whole meal because I wasn't about to argue with management. God bless you, lady. I hope you are still doing well. Edit, just to clarify, because I saw one comment mention she was just trying to get a free drink. When I came to her, it looked like it hadn't been touched, and she happily took her correct drink order right away when I took the first one. Teacher hates senior skip day and tries to ruin fun. Group of troublemakers obey her instructions. My dad and I were talking about our respective days in high school, and he shared how he and his buddies got back at their grouchy old math teacher, Mrs. Schaefer. According to Dad, Mrs. Schaefer was the best teacher he had ever had, and he and his buddies gave her endless grief, including using the phone in the classroom to pull a prank on another one of their pals. However, she took things way too seriously. She was stern, strict, and was the kind of person who could never take a joke. Everything had to be done exactly right. Of course, Dad and his buddies, being teenagers, saw her as someone who could use livening up and gained reputation as class clowns. He told me that Mrs. Schaefer probably thought he and his friends were going to be criminal masterminds or something. Every year at this high school, they'd have senior skip day, with every senior looking forward to because, hey, it's a day away from school. Mrs. Schaefer and her grouchiness detested senior skip day and decided to ruin everyone's fun during my dad's senior year. To this day, Dad swears that she picked that year because of the shenanigans he and his pals got into. She announced that there would be a test on this day. Not only that, but anyone who skipped the test because of senior skip day would get a 0, which would affect their grade average. Dad, who had a scholarship lined up at his dream school, was mad. If he missed the test, his grade average would be affected, risking his scholarship. However, he had been waiting every day for 4 years for senior skip day. So he and his buddies came up with a plan and give Mrs. Schaefer the most grief she had ever had in her entire life. Senior skip day rolls around. Dad and his buddies went to play golf early in the day as their test was scheduled in the afternoon. Once they finished their game, they hurried to the school, not even bothering to change out of their golfing clothes. However, this became a big problem, one Dad admitted he and his friends didn't think of. For those who don't know anything about golf shoes have little cleats, spikes, on the soles to help grip on rough terrain. However, wearing them and walking on tile floors is a bad idea. One of them was smart and took off his cleats, but the rest of them were stubborn and insisted on trying to get to Mrs. Schaefer's room in their cleats, which was on the second floor and on the other side of the building. They were slipping, sliding around, grabbing the walls, and laughing so hard. Everyone poked their heads out of the classrooms and were confused at the sight of these 4 guys trying to walk to the classroom in their golf cleats. Somehow, they managed to get down the hallway and up the stairs without breaking their necks and made it to Mrs. Schaefer's room. There was now a new problem. While the hallways had tiles, the classrooms themselves had wood floors, which resulted in the cleats getting stuck. They were clomping around, making a racket trying to get to their desks. Everyone else in the classroom looked up and laughed so hard. Everyone, that is, except Mrs. Schaefer. She was beet red and looking like she was going to drop dead of a heart attack at the sight of these 4 idiots, as my dad put it, clomping into the room, dressed for a round of golf and laughing as if they heard the best joke in the world. Mrs. Schaefer yelled, "What are you doing?" and pointed to the once perfect wooden floor, which now had holes in them. Dad, who had calmed down enough, shrugged his shoulders and said, "We had time between rounds of golf to take the test, so here we are." Mrs. Schaefer, realizing that they did show up to take the test as she had told them, and that her own ploy to get back at them had backfired, calmly told them to take their seats and gave their test to them, glowering at them the whole time. When they were done, they clomped back out before slipping and sliding around to catch their next tea time. At least Mrs. Schaefer was fair. Dad passed the test and kept his scholarship. To this day, those holes are still in the wooden floors. Have you ever had a teacher who couldn't take a joke? If so, what did you do about it? Please let us know.
They're lucky I wasn't the teacher.
Fake stepmom thinks I'm going to pay for her living. Long backstory short, I've lived with my father, well, forever. He got married to a woman, Patricia, for a green card in about 2008-ish. It was always for the green card. I know, wrong, blah, blah, blah. She needed money because she had just been fired and her daughter was having health problems. Her mother encouraged her to drink and smoke. Wonder why the health problems were there. So my father made her an employee so she'd make the minimum wage to sponsor him, $500 a week. She did nothing. She lived in Alabama while we lived in Georgia. He got his green card. He continued to pay her because he was an idiot and didn't get a prenup. I lived with him and worked for him. legit worked for him, so I saw and dealt with him every day. We were close. I had my first child in August of 2019, his only grandchild. He was diagnosed with cancer in August of 2019 too. I helped him through all his medical stuff, took over as much of the business as I could, was his home care provider when he was in hospice, and he passed in June. When he was diagnosed, he made a will saying absolutely nothing was to go to his wife. Everything went to me or my son. The house was put in my name with a quit-claim deed. The cars were all transferred. His and her relationship consisted of her literally texting him throughout the week asking for more money.
Hubby, I need more money. Please deposit. My love, I need more money. I have bills. Husband, I need you to pay my taxes now.
Even though I made more than her, she paid $3,000 plus more in taxes and refused to use our legit accountants too. This was constant. He was never rich and his company is small and still has bad seasons. He didn't even tell her when he had a heart attack in 2016. He didn't tell her when I was pregnant. Didn't tell her when he was diagnosed until a month before he passed. He called her begging for help because he felt like a burden to me and he figured he was paying her so she could at least help. She never showed. In Georgia, a wife is entitled to 1 year of support. So I told her in the middle of lockdown I was dropping her money to $300 a week. I didn't tell her my father had passed a month before. I did tell her myself and 2 employees had to take pay cuts because of lockdown. Truth. The very next day she showed up at my house and just walked in. I told her, she yelled at me. She'd brought her mother. She yelled at me. She made a big deal about wanting to meet her grandson, my son, and how much her and my father loved each other. Lie, my father hated her. She left and I thought it was over. I was going to continue to pay her $300 and nothing else. Then the threats started. How dare I have lied to her? How dare I cremate him? His choice. I had to have her approval. I needed to pay her more because it's what he would have wanted. She also was going to come and take what belonged to her, his ashes and all of his personal belongings. She left a purse with him with some immigration stuff in it, which she also wanted. I told her to buzz off. A couple days passed. I went to visit a friend 2 hours away on a Saturday. She showed up at my work demanding I meet her there right then and now to give her all of her stuff, including my father's laptops, phones, and ashes. She threatened to break in, call the cops on me, everything. I was literally in tears on the phone with my immigration lawyer, the probate lawyer, and 911. Both lawyers are wonderful people and knew if I called on a Saturday, it was an emergency. They eventually left, telling me on the phone that I was a jerk and they were going to get me, Patricia and her mom. Drama happens and I hear nothing from them. I've been paying the $300 a week. She texted me today asking when I was going to pay her taxes. I said never. She told me it was my job to pay them. That's what my father would have wanted because he loved her and didn't want us to be like this. I told her all I had to do, according to law and will, was pay her 1 year of support, which I was doing since the day he passed. She flipped out and called me a liar and how much my father loved her and he'd never want this to happen to her. The jerk expected me to continue to pay for everything for her until when? She passes? I must pay her cable, her taxes, her everything. Entitlement. Edit. I never expected to get this response. Normally I get a couple people, but the amounts of people reinforcing how entitled she is gives me new fire to continue ignoring her craziness and drop her as soon as I can. Thank you all for the awards as well. I don't often get any, and I was really excited. Have you ever had anyone try to use you for money? If so, what did you do about it? Please let us know.
Even I think she's too entitled. She needs to calm that down.
Am I the jerk for telling my kids that if they don't grow up and get real jobs, they aren't getting a penny from me when I pass? I, 57, male, have 2 kids. N, who's 30, male, and A, who's 27, female. N works part-time flipping burgers, but insists his real job is as a gaming streamer. A claims she's a professional influencer, her livelihood supported by her boyfriend. My kids are adults. What they do with their lives is their choice. We've had several arguments about it, but ultimately, as adults, the responsibility for their lives is their own. Over Christmas, we were talking about their mother, on Zoom, when A brought up the subject of her will, wondering if she had left anything to them. I confessed that she passed before ever writing one, and the money she did have was used up the year she passed. We were a dual-income family in a time when neither of us were making a lot. It was a hard time. Eventually, I joined a friend in the private sector, and my fortune changed. I'm not rich, but I'll never be uncomfortable again. Well, N then decided to lighten the mood by implying that I'll make up for it when I pass. I asked him what he meant, and the conversation went as followed. Me: what do you mean? N: well, you have a lot of money, right? It'll go to us. Me: and who told you that? A: what do you mean? Me: I've made it very clear that I don't approve of the way you both live. You both chose to not get an education or real jobs. You have no way of supporting yourself. I often buy them groceries. You refuse to help yourselves. So why would I enable your lifestyles by leaving you my savings when I pass? You want my money? Then grow up and get real jobs. But the bank of Dad will be forever closed when I'm forever closed. What followed was a heated argument where both N and A accused me of being manipulative and unsupportive, so I got real with them. Me: you both refuse to grow up. Flipping burgers is an honorable job, but it's not going to keep a roof over your head. What if you have kids? What if you get fired? And A: what will you do if your boyfriend breaks up with you because all you do is sit on your butt all day and take photos of yourself? You want to do that? Find a modeling agency. A real job. You both speak of chasing your dreams, but neither one of you are in any position to do that because neither of you wants to take responsibility for yourselves right now. I've said it a million times. You're adults. What you do with your lives is your choice and your responsibility. Dreams take money, and neither of you have that. Grow up, get a job, a real job, then chase your dreams. I'm not going to leave a penny to either of you if your life plan is to get by until I die, then coast through the rest of your lives off the earnings of my hard work. N ended the call after a prolonged silence. A called me a jerk, then did the same. I haven't heard from either of them since, and neither will take my calls. So, am I the jerk here? I think I might be, because I was unnecessarily harsh on Christmas. Edit: some of the feedback coming at me is because I'm critical of their jobs. To be clear, a job is something that you make money from. Neither earn any money as a streamer or influencer. And I defend my opinion of flipping burgers. It's an honorable job, but not a career if you're doing it part-time like my son, thus making him ineligible for promotion. If he were working it full-time, I would be worried, but I'd know he's taking responsibility for his life. Edit 2. This conversation has come up a lot during the lockdown. My son was laid off and my daughter isn't working, but both have been speaking a lot about their jobs as a streamer and influencer while bringing in no money to show for it. We've argued about it a lot, and it just came to a head when they brought up my will. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk or not? Please let us know. Oh, I can't wait to read what our audience thinks about this one. I got out of the hospital and Entitled Mom sent me right back. Cast: we've got Entitled Mom, we've got Dad, my father, we've got Neighbor Mom, we've got me, and CB, Entitled Mom's cool boyfriend. 1. I have a severe allergy to cashews. It's bad enough that 1 out of 100 would end me if I'm not treated properly and quickly. Nowadays, I always make sure to have an EpiPen on at all times, but when this story took place, I was a little more forgetful about it. I was 9, leave me alone, and didn't always have it. 2. I have asthma, which can be a pretty lousy combination with anaphylaxis. 3. At the time of this story, my dad was working for a company that treated him like garbage and wouldn't give him time off for anything except medical emergencies pretty much. 4. This story starts about 4 days before my 10th birthday. Story: a week before my birthday, my dad's boss told him he was going to San Francisco for work stuff. We lived in Denver at the time, which meant my dad was going to miss my birthday. It was upsetting, but I understood, and he said we'd have a party once he got back. While he was gone, my brother and I were staying with Entitled Mom. At the time, we knew she was a little entitled, but my dad trusted her to take care of us. On day 3 of my dad's trip, my brother and I were playing in their living room when Entitled Mom offered us some granola bars as a snack. At the time, I was young and wasn't very cautious, so I didn't always read ingredients for things I was eating. Unfortunately, there were cashews in the granola bar, so when I took the first bite, I started to feel it pretty quickly after. Within minutes, I was throwing up everywhere, in severe pain, and my throat was closing up. And as if it couldn't get worse, that was when I realized I had forgotten my EpiPen. Then, the panic and closing airways triggered an asthma attack, and I also didn't have my inhaler. So at that point, the cool boyfriend calls an ambulance, and I pass out on the floor. The paramedics were able to keep me alive, but I did end up slipping into a coma for 11 days. This meant I was in a coma on my birthday.
But I guess that was probably pretty low on the list of concerns, considering they weren't 100% sure I was going to make it out of the coma. So, a week after my birthday, I finally wake up. At first, I was fairly calm about waking up in a hospital, until I found out that I had been in a coma for 11 days, at which point I started panicking and almost gave myself another asthma attack. Anyway, they kept me there for a few days just to make sure I was okay and that it was safe for me to go home. So we finally get home, and as soon as I walk in, I see my brother, my grandparents, my aunt and uncle, my 2 cousins, entitled mom and neighbor mom and her kids, who my brother and I are good friends with, as well as a big sign that reads, "Happy birthday and welcome back to the land of the living." They had planned a surprise birthday party for me once they found out that I was out of the coma. So, we went about doing birthday party things and hanging out. I got some questions from my brother and cousins about the coma, while neighbor mom bakes my cake. However, the only important thing that was happening at this time was the following conversation between entitled mom and neighbor's mom. Neighbor's mom: "Man, that must have been terrifying for him to go into that coma. I mean, imagine having to be that careful about everything you eat." Entitled mom:
Oh, don't tell me you buy all of that.
"What?"
He was clearly faking it to get attention. Everyone knows that asthma and allergies aren't real.
Neighbor mom: "Both of those are very real and a very serious problem."
Whatever. You sheeple are just too stupid to see through the lies.
Then entitled mom just wandered off. I feel it's important to note that at this time, the birthday cake had just been put in the oven and this conversation happened in the living room, which did not have a line of sight into the kitchen. After a while, the cake finally finished baking and we all congregated in the dining room to eat it. So, everyone sang happy birthday to me and my aunt cut the cake and gave everyone a slice. I was about to take the first bite when the luckiest thing that could have happened. I dropped my fork on the floor. At this point, I wanted to act all grown up and solve my own problems. Decided I'd go into the kitchen and clean the fork myself. Right as I finish and start walking back out into the dining room, I hear my dad yell,
"What the heck did you just say?"
I run out to see what's going on and see my dad standing up, staring daggers at entitled mom while she cowered in fear of him. Entitled mom, whimperingly,
It was for his own good."
It turned out that after the conversation between entitled mom and neighbor's mom, entitled mom had snuck into the kitchen and poured most of a bag of mixed nuts that she had brought with her into the cake. Dad slams his hand on the table.
"How the heck is that for his own good?"
Entitled mom starts to gain some confidence as she doesn't see a problem with what's happening.
Well, if he had eaten the cake without knowing they were there, he wouldn't have been able to fake a reaction because he wouldn't have known that there was anything in the cake to react to.
Dad,
"What the heck is wrong with you?"
entitled mom.
"I was trying to prove to you sheeple that Allergy—"
Dad, I knew inviting you here was a mistake. I figured it was good for the boys to have you in their lives, but you've made it abundantly clear that it's not.
So, what are you saying?
I'm saying, get the heck out of my house and stay away from my kids.
You can't do that. They're my kids too.
That's right, everyone. Entitled mom was my actual mom. Dad, not after what you just pulled there, not. And if you want to take this to court, I'll make sure that you aren't even allowed in the same state as them. Now get out of my house before I call the cops.
You just wait until my father hears about this.
Her dad is very wealthy, so I think she was expecting him to help her get custody of my brother and me. We found out later that not only did her boyfriend break up with her and kick her out of his house, but when her dad found out about what she did, he refused to let her live with him, stopped giving her money, and said that if she took my dad to court, he would support my dad. As you can expect, she never took us to court. And as for the rest of the party, we just bought a new cake because no one wanted to take the time to bake another one. We also decided to just throw out the pan we had used for the first one because she had put so many nuts in it that we were worried about it contaminating anything we put in it after that. Is there anything that you're allergic to? If so, what is it? Please let us know.
I'm allergic to thumbs downs, so please hit that thumbs up instead. Do it for the re.
Am I the jerk for kicking my roommate out because her boyfriend is over all the time? I am extremely unsure whether I am the jerk here or not. Usually I'm rather secure in my actions, but given the current situation around the world and the reason, or lack thereof, I wanted to see if I am the jerk here. I managed to buy my own apartment 4 years ago. After living there for about a year, I figured it would be a good idea to rake in some extra cash by renting out one of the 2 guest rooms. Since then, I have had 2 roommates, but the first guy was an amazing dude and we're still friends now. A year ago, my now roommate moved in, and it has been a very different experience. She is a very quiet person when she doesn't have friends over, so it has proven impossible to become friends due to this, and it is a bit awkward for that reason. I mean, it took several months for her to respond normally to me saying good morning instead of with an incoherent whisper. Regardless, I have not had many issues with her apart from that, until about 3 months ago. Roommate got a boyfriend, and he was around all the time. At first, I just figured he was sleeping over here, and that's reasonable for any couple. My girlfriend sleeps over now and again too, but it quickly went to the level of where I would wake up to get my coffee, and this dude was there every morning, midday, and evening. It doesn't help that this dude is even more awkward to be around, and if you can remember the creepy silent kid in the corner of the class that follows you with his or her eyes all the time but says nothing back in high school, that's pretty much him. I spoke to her about this, and she said she was sorry and would handle it, so I figured that would solve it. Well, I went to visit my parents for 2 weeks a little over 2 months ago. I couldn't get the holiday off, so I figured this was better than nothing. No worries, it was allowed here. And when I got home, I come back to 3 people. Turns out that my roommate had been allowing her boyfriend's parents to sleep in the guest room. Now the guest room is not part of the agreement. It's entirely mine and not a shared space. You can imagine I was upset. Unfortunately, instead of apologizing, her boyfriend got angry and started yelling at me, after which I kicked him and his parents out, told him he was no longer welcome. The next day I served my roommate with a 30-day eviction notice, which was the first time she showed emotion, as she immediately started crying about how she wouldn't be able to find anything else in time, how the reason her boyfriend was over here a lot was because he's homeless, etc. Crap went through, and she moved out 3 weeks ago. I'm wondering whether I'm the jerk or not. It does feel similar to throwing out a shirt with a stain instead of washing it. In other words, I can't help but feel I didn't give her enough of a chance given she barely caused any issues apart from very recently, and the reason for kicking her out was largely because of her boyfriend, not her. Well, what do you think? Should OP have kicked out his roommate or not? Please let us know.
I don't blame him one bit. Nothing irks me more than quiet people who just stare at me.
Same Karen twice in 2 weeks. I have watched videos and heard the stories on YouTube about Karens, and they usually make me giggle and put a smile on my face. But from time to time, I usually have to put up with a Karen every now and then with my work, but nothing ever worth talking about or posting. Cast. We've got me. We've got best friend. We've got best friend's kid. We've got crazy Karen and Walmart manager and deputy sheriffs 1 and 2. Being the year of lockdown, and when things were sort of getting back to normal at the beginning of the summer with retail stores, and just to let everyone know, I'm a female, 36, and in really great shape and a cyclist. I was out mountain biking with some friends on a wonderful late afternoon. Good workout also. Started to head home and stopped at a Walmart to pick up a few things to make dinner for my daughter and I. Then I happened to see best friend with their kid. We greeted, and I have always been like an aunt to her kid. He was turning 4 years old, and she was buying him a bicycle for his birthday. This is right up my alley, and I said, great, let Auntie K help you out with it. Both were happy about it. We found a good 16-inch wheel starter bike, looked at helmets, and I even fitted the helmet to him. Best friend and I were chatting a bit. Best friend's kid was looking at other toys, and this is where I get the ahem. I turned. I saw that Karen in all of her glory, and yes, every bit of the Karen looked with her kid. I said, I'm sorry if I'm in your way of the shelves. Then, in a not-so-nice tone, crazy Karen says,
Now that you're done with her, you can help me with my kid and a bike for him.
Me, sorry ma'am, I don't work here. I was just helping my friend with her son.
Yes, you do. You are wearing cycling clothes.
Me, I just finished with a ride about an hour ago, and I'm here to pick things up and saw my friend. I'm just helping her. I'm sure one of the employees would be glad to help you, and I really don't work here. Best friend, she doesn't work here, lady.
You need to butt out and shut up. I wasn't talking to you.
Me, OMG, let's go and get away from this crazy lady.
What? How dare you call me that? I will have you fired.
Me, trying to stay calm, I repeated, I don't work here. My friends always say that I'm really scary when I'm mad. Being a tall woman, 5'10" and fit, I'm not a small woman. We tried to walk away, and Karen grabs my arm. I pull out of her grip and tell her, if you touch me again, I'll have you arrested. I try to walk away again, and she grabs my cycling jersey.
You are going to help me, and I'm going to report you to the manager also.
Me, let go of my jersey, you wingnut.
Then a Walmart manager comes around the corner and Karen screams at him.
You need to fire your employee for not helping me.
Manager, ma'am, she doesn't work here, and you need to let her go before I have you escorted out the door.
How dare you treat paying customers this way?
Me. I pull my jersey from her grip and she tries to slap me. I grab her wrist in mid-flight and said, "You have now done it, lady," and twisted her arm behind her. Karen is now yelling assault and screaming as I put her arm behind her back. I do a lot of fighting training, judo and some MMA. My best friend is recording it all on her phone and trying to calm down her kid at the same time. Me to the manager. Call the sheriff's department right now. I'm having her arrested.
Let me go. I will sue you all. You are all going to jail.
Me. I don't think so. I wrenched her arm back up harder. Her kid is crying and escorted her up to the front of the store as we waited for someone from the sheriff's department. 2 deputy sheriffs walk in, and I knew them both from having to use the sheriff's department a lot in my line of work. I let go and Karen screams.
Arrest her now for assaulting me.
Sheriff 1. Ma'am, you need to calm down right now.
No, she assaulted me.
Me, best friend, and manager just stood there and waited for the sheriffs to handle everything and answer anything that was asked to us. Sheriff 2. Kay, what is going on here? Karen.
You know this jerk? Arrest her.
Sheriff 1. You need to be quiet or I'm going to arrest you. I was feeling really bad for her kid. He was crying as another Walmart employee tried to keep him calm. Karen kept screaming and they cuffed her as I, the manager, and best friend talked to Sheriff 2 about what had happened. I didn't want to press charges because I didn't want to spend time in court with it all. I spent enough time in court with my line of work. She was banned from that Walmart. Manager apologized for everything and gave my best friend and me $50 gift cards. I handed mine to best friend, which paid for the bike and the helmet. I never got my items to make dinner as I called my daughter and told her we were ordering out. I thought that would be the end of this and I would never see that woman again. I was wrong. Add to the cast, office manager. 2 weeks go by and I'm in my office at work and I told everyone in the office about what happened at this Walmart. By the way, I own a home rental business, family owned. I spent my whole life in this business and took over when my parents retired. Nice sized business with 40 employees from office to maintenance. This one fine day, one of my office employees comes back to the office with this couple. I was in my office with my door shut, but my employee introduced them to my office manager / CEO, and they were going to file and sign final paperwork on a home rental. My CEO buzzes me and asked if I could come out to meet the new renters and introduce myself to them. As I walked up front, the look of shock hit my face and I couldn't believe it. It was Crazy Karen. Karen sees me.
You. Don't tell me you work here.
Me. Yes, I do work here, I said calmly. Karen yelling to her.
You should fire this worthless jerk.
Office manager. I can't fire her. Only the owner of the company can fire her.
I want to speak to the owner.
Office manager points at me and says, she is the owner. Me. Yes, you are in my place of business. I'm not going to rent a house to you, and I'm asking you to leave right now, never to come back before I call the sheriff's department on you. She leaves in a big hurry with her husband in tow. My sales employee was laughing about it and then joked, I guess I don't get my rental bonus on my next check. I laughed and said I will pay you the bonus after having to deal with her. He was happy about that. A Grubhub driver is now banned from our premises. I'll give you one guess as to what you think he did to get banned. If you guessed refuse to wear a mask, you'd be correct. I host / serve / expo at a semi-fancy Italian restaurant / pizza place. Was running expo on New Year's Eve. We were incredibly busy. Now, keep in mind, we just received a visit from the health department because we had received 3 complaints on the lockdown tip line related to mask misuse. Health department came and saw that the calls were BS and we were doing things properly. But still, a visit from the health department will kick any restaurant into overdrive, making sure they're doing things right. This story involves a jerk Grubhub driver, a newly hired manager, and a bartender. Here's how this went down. Grubhub walks in, lets the bar know he's there to pick up a Grubhub order, and is kindly instructed to wait by the front door while we finish the order. Bartender asked him to please wear a mask while he waits. When he walked in, the host wasn't at the stand to tell him. He says, no thank you. Bartender, sir, everyone has to wear a mask while in the restaurant. I'm sorry, please wear a mask and the order will be out shortly. Grubhub ignores bartender and walks to the front of the restaurant to wait. Bartender lets manager know what's going on. Manager walks up to him, handing him one of the masks we hand out to people. Manager: "Hi sir, if you would please wear a mask while in the restaurant, that would be great." Grubhub, taking the mask and putting it in his pocket: "I'm good, thanks." Manager: "I'm sorry, but it's not optional. You either need to wear this or wait outside while we finish the order." Grubhub: "I have a right to my own body, and I am exercising that right by choosing not to wear this." Manager: "Sir, again, this is a private property, and just like we require people to wear clothes, we're requiring people to wear masks. If you do not want to wear one, you can wait outside." Grubhub: "I'm not going to do that, but thanks. Now, how about you go check on my order?" Manager: "A server will bring you your order shortly. Now, I will tell you one more time, either wear a mask or go outside. If you can't do that, I'm going to have to call the police." Grubhub: "Why do you have to come over here and be such a jerk about it?" At this point, the food is ready, and I hand it to him. On his way out the door, manager calls after him: "Don't bother picking up any more orders at this restaurant. You are not allowed here at any point in the future." Grubhub just rolls his eyes and leaves. Manager promptly goes to the Grubhub app to find the driver's name, goes through the formal complaint process to report him to Grubhub, and effectively banned him from the premises. I came in for my next shift to find signs all over the host stand/server station saying Grubhub name permanently banned from premises, but I got tipped out on $5,000 of sales. Long calls equals better bonus? Hold my beer. A brief story from my time in a telecoms contact center. I worked for a rather large Australian provider that everyone knows and actively hates, mostly because it's fun to hate them. In this story, we were doing outbound calls to transition people onto the new NBN network. For those of you unfamiliar with Australia's internet, it was third world, literally. We were slower than Nigeria until we rolled out the NBN and upgraded to slightly faster third world speeds. Also worth mentioning, much like the company I worked for, the NBN was universally hated because it was crap. Enough said. Anyway, like all call centers, we had a bunch of miserable hoops to jump through in order to bring our paycheck up to a level that could be considered humane. Our capitalist overlords referred to these hoops as KPIs, key performance indicators for the blissfully ignorant. Anyway, with the new campaign came a new set of KPIs. Conversion rate, after call time, and customer satisfaction were the KPIs of the day. Now, these KPIs were normally all BS. You needed to meet some god-tier numbers in order to collect a half-decent paycheck. However, in this particular case, there was a loophole. See, due to the controversial nature of the NBN, we were told to focus on quality over quantity. They wanted an excellent customer experience, and the new KPIs were a reflection of that. As such, quantity of conversions was not a KPI, and when I questioned if we had time limits on calls, I was told, "We don't care what you do, but long calls means a good experience, so keep them on the line and get them switched over." And so began the best work month I had at this soul trap. See, before entering comms, I was a salesman in aged care, and a pretty good one at that. And you know that stereotype of old people talking for eternity and beyond? It's a stereotype for a reason. Every morning I would log in, volunteer for the aged clientele campaign, which was easy because they were normally the hardest people to convert, fearful of scams, technology, and such, so not many people wanted to do it. And then I would start to chat. See, when speaking with the elderly, all it takes is a well-placed poke or two, and you can literally have them speak for hours. So for the next month, I took 2 to 4 calls a day, down from 20 to 30, had almost zero after call time, the calls were so long I didn't need it, had an 80% conversion rate and 90% customer satisfaction. Turns out people tend to like you after you take the time to listen to them. Each phone call, assuming I wasn't told to buzz off upon introducing myself, would last 2 to 3 hours minimum, with my record being a 7-hour call to a lovely bloke named Stan. He told some great war stories. I ended up doubling my normal paycheck, and my managers, while not being entirely happy with my nonsense, put up with it, because at the end of the day, those were the rules and KPIs we were given. I got my paycheck, the oldies got a good chat, and my employer got to pay through the nose. Happy endings for all. I proceeded to hand in my resignation once KPIs went back to normal, which I, to this day, regard as one of the best decisions I ever made. Has anyone else out there dealt with the anti-shoe lady? It was about 7 years ago, and I was a server in a restaurant on the beach in Florida. There was this one lady who would come in every few weeks and try to get a table, but she would never wear shoes. We were right on the beach, so it wasn't that uncommon for us to have to tell people to put shoes on and they'd go get them and come back. But this lady was anti-shoe. She was a rude, pushy, hippie-looking lady, and she would throw a fit and tell us that we were discriminating against her, and explain that she was part of some movement for the shoeless. Most of the time, she would be turned away at the door because the hostess knew who she was, but eventually we got a new hostess who didn't know about the anti-shoe lady and got scared when the lady yelled at her, so she sat her shoeless butt in my section. As I'm walking up to the table, I realize who she is, and I immediately look at her feet. Of course, there's no shoes, so I'm like, what the heck? Now I have to deal with this crazy jerk. I'm like, ma'am, you need shoes on. It's dangerous. There could be glass, blah, blah, blah. And she tells me she will not wear shoes. She's already seated, and I'm going to serve her. And then she pulls out this paper and tells me to give it to my manager. It's an official-looking letter. I forgot exactly where from, that says that this lady has filed something with somewhere to be allowed in public places with no shoes because it is against her beliefs. I show my manager, and we all gather together in the kitchen and talk crap and laugh for a few minutes. My manager brings her note back and tells her that she's ridiculous and we still won't be serving her if there's not shoes on her feet, no matter what note she brings in. She rants and raves about her rights and the ridiculous shoe rule we enforce. She tells my manager that since she never wears shoes, her feet are harder, and if she steps on something in our restaurant, it will not hurt her and she will not sue. But if we do not serve her, we will hear from her lawyer. My manager was kinda cool, so he tells us to just ignore her and leave her there. So we all proceeded with our jobs and ignore her while she sits in my section for about an hour. Every time someone walks by, she tries to get their attention and she says she's ready to order, but we just ignore her. It felt great, especially because this lady was a rude jerk who was just using our restaurant to prove a point that did not need to be proven. Also, her feet were really gross. She eventually just left, and after that day, she didn't come back. According to her, there's a whole organization of shoeless people fighting the battle alongside her, but I find that hard to believe, because why? Anyways, it just seems so similar to the people who won't wear the masks, and I like to think she's out there somewhere fighting for her right to be shoeless, but now she's also maskless, and employees everywhere are having to decide whether to kick her out over non-shoes or her non-mask. I hope that lady has to cook her own food for the rest of her shoeless life. Anyone else ever met this lady or someone like her? Thanks for reading, and good luck out there. Do you think customers should have to wear shoes or not? Please let us know.
Maybe they should start their own restaurant where no one has to wear shoes. Imagine what it would smell like.
Am I the jerk for telling my girlfriend I'll literally kick her out if she won't see a doctor? I'm honestly out of ideas for how to help my girlfriend, and so maybe I was too harsh today, but I'm losing my mind over this situation. She definitely has a medical issue of some kind. She goes to the walk-in sometimes, but they won't do anything long-term that needs monitoring, so she needs a family doctor. And she's been on a list for over a year, and she does call around occasionally to family doctors, but has not had any luck. But I don't think she's taking her health seriously at all, and offer to take her to the ER sometimes, because seriously, she could get hurt or something, and I want this addressed as soon as possible. She is thin and small. She doesn't eat much, but partly, and I can confirm, because she often throws up after having just a few bites of a meal, and then feels sick for a while. That kind of knocks her out of the day for a few hours, so she just takes vitamins and occasionally drinks Ensure, the kind of drink targeted at people to keep up calories, but she's only 23, and she's weirdly fine with this and says she's always kind of been this way, which isn't true because we started dating 2 years ago, and I definitely saw her eat normally at some times in the past. She wakes up in the middle of the night to be sick in the bathroom. Sometimes in the middle of the day, she goes from totally coherent to looking like a drunk person in like less than 5 minutes, and I literally have to force her to drink some juice or something. I'm not a doctor, but I know she needs one like yesterday. I'm not even comfortable with letting her drive anymore because of how spacey she can get out of nowhere. She keeps saying she's on a list and will get a doctor eventually, but I think seriously this is bad, and I know I'm nagging, but it's kind of scary, and I don't know what to do at all. Today, she got really weak and confused and forgot about lots of things we were talking about just this morning. And I said I kind of want to call an ambulance, and she told me that she's fine and would be mad if I did that. And I'm so upset. I said like, if you're trying to hurt yourself, I can't be with you to watch. And seriously, you have to do something or else move out because I can't do this anymore. You have to get healthy or get out. She's okay physically now,
but incredibly angry with me for being insensitive about symptoms she can't help. But I know she can't help it, and that's why I want her to go to the hospital, because what if she has some kind of disease that can use medicine or something? I really don't know. I know medical info is super personal, but I live with her and see this problem every day, and it's really scary, so I kind of think it's my problem too, but maybe I'm overstepping. I really don't know. Is it a jerk thing to push people on medical topics like this? Maybe I should call her mom, in another city but not far, but that also feels kind of jerkish, and I don't know how to act right here. Edit. Thank you all so much for your stories and encouragement on this situation. It helped me realize it's worth acting, even if it would make me the jerk. We messaged her sister really late last night. Girlfriend said it was okay to do this, but I am the one who messaged, and she was still actually awake and said she has the weekend off and could come stay with us for 2 days and help if she can, and she got here a few hours ago. She's being really kind to me, honestly, like trying to take care of me and telling me to go sit down, and she made me food and I'm overwhelmed. She had a private conversation with my girlfriend, and when they came out, they said they are going to go to the ER, and her sister is somehow doing all of this so easily where I couldn't. And they're at the hospital now, and I'm not. But I think that makes sense, because she seems to listen to her sister a lot easier than me, and it's probably best, and I think I'm just exhausted or something. I've never been so stressed in my life, but I'm so thankful to her sister, who seems to know exactly what to say to make everything work. Edit again. For anyone curious, her sister called me, and I guess my girlfriend has more than one ulcer in her stomach, and there could be a reason for it, so they're still at the hospital to try to see why she has them. She had a scope thing and also a biopsy, and that's all I know so far. Update. After many days and long nights in the ER with referral promises that never came to be, my girlfriend finally got a referral to some kind of diagnostic clinic that works with difficult problems. The early hospital visits were enough to know that she had ulcers, but she was still sick even after they were seemingly healed. So they did more tests and more ER visits. Sometimes all they could do was hydrate her. She's constantly dehydrated, and tell her she needs to take stronger vitamins because she's always mildly deficient in a few. The diagnostic clinic ran a ton of blood tests looking for every possible thing, like 3 blood tests a week. She must have been screened for every disease in existence. They found some mild liver dysfunction. Sorry if I report this incorrectly, but she doesn't process bilirubin correctly as far as I understand it, and that is an important liver thing. After that, they still tested her for every gastro and liver disease under the sun, and it looks like she has a genetic thing that sometimes, but not always, causes stomach pain and puking. They basically told her that it sucks, but isn't life-threatening, and all she can do is avoid putting stress on the body. So she has actually gotten much better at sleeping regular hours and not pushing herself physically and trying to drink enough water, or Gatorade, which she now claims to be superior to water, but whatever, it seems to work. She still throws up suddenly, or if she gets stressed out, but it's much less frequent, and for at least 2 months hasn't been getting randomly confused, so that's a good sign. She says now that she has an answer, it's easier to handle, and I'm not really pushing past that because it seems to be working. She isn't angry with me anymore, and said I wasn't wrong to be upset, and she apologized for being difficult. But she says she was initially overwhelmed with never getting answers and never knowing how to eat or act to make a difference, so she never tried. She seems embarrassed about it now. We had a lot of conversations about how to deal with health issues in the future, and I also apologized and said I'd really try not to lose my temper if she gets sick again, but it will be easier if we talk about it sooner. I think we are on the same page now, and things are way better than before. She even saw the original post and said the comments helped her realize that this was actually scary to other people, where she didn't think it was noticeable to others at first. She still said I was too harsh to lash out at her, as some of you mentioned, and I'd agree. The compromise was to talk about things more often so neither of us has to feel like worry is building up over time. Thanks to everyone who reached out after the first post with thoughtful responses. It meant a lot, and we might not be totally there yet, but we are making good progress. Have you ever had a loved one who just refused to go to the doctor? If so, what did you do about it? Please let us know.
I take Mr. Reddit to the doctor anytime his nose starts turning red. It's usually just a cold.
I might be young, but I'm the assistant manager. This is a story from a while back. 3 years to be exact, but I need to share it. Just some info. I'm 23, male. So, have any of you had this odd experience where you are a hard worker doing your best, valued by your district and regional managers, but your coworkers and store staff absolutely hate you? Whenever you replace someone at another store, things are great, but you come back and it's all crap? Well, that was me when I worked at Starbucks 4 years ago. Long story short, after a whole year of that nonsense, I presented a resignation letter, which prompted one of the higher-ups to call me asking why I wanted to leave. I explained the toxic work environment, and he offered to transfer me to another store as an assistant manager. As you may guess, the raise in payment was more than enough to encourage me as a 20-year-old kid. But to the matter at hand. Here's the actors. We've got me, we've got Karen, we've got cashier and manager. This story takes place around 3 weeks after I started at my new position. Things were doing good. I was struggling a bit with the whole inventory side of things, but logistics and scheduling were great. Since I was still learning, I wasn't supposed to be left alone. But the store manager, 30-something female, had an issue and had to leave for a little while. I told her I would handle it. Everything went well. Staff that day were all pros. Honestly, one of the baristas, cashier, working that day was probably more qualified than me to actually manage, so I decided to take my break, and as I usually did, I went to the dressing room, took my shirt and apron off, and sat by the window. A small corner with a couch and lovely vista, drinking a coffee and eating whatever had spoiled. I'm sitting happily there, and suddenly a streak of poorly done blonde dyed hair invades my space and screeches.
Excuse me? I need you to move out of this seat, child. I have business to attend.
She was carrying a laptop. Me. Oh, you probably want to go upstairs. The reception sucks on this little corner. I knew this for a fact. And there's more plugs, so you can connect your charger.
No, I need this spot. Move, or I'll tell the manager. I'm a regular.
That made me raise an eyebrow. I had never seen her before. Me. So, you know the manager? Well, I'm sorry, but she isn't here right now. Besides, I was just trying to help. But if you think you'll manage, sure, have the seat. I stood up and left, heading to the back room to finish the rest of my break, when I suddenly hear a screech, and not 5 seconds later, cashier pops her head in. Cashier. OP, sorry to bother you, but there's a crazy lady here. Can you handle her? Me. The blonde-dyed one? Sure, let's go. We head there, and in fact, it was Karen, screaming out at the top of her lungs for the manager. I'm sorry, ma'am. As I told you before, manager isn't here right now. I'm taking her duties until she comes back. What's the problem?
You? The manager? Don't make me laugh. Where is she?
Me. Miss, manager isn't here. She had to leave for personal issues. She'll be back in a minute. That's how far I got.
Where is she? I'll have you fired over this. I couldn't connect to my reunion, and now you are acting instead of your boss.
Me. Ma'am, I'm the assistant manager, and I told you that place had a poor connection.
Stop lying. When manager comes back, I'll make sure you lose your job, new guy.
She huffed and puffed back into her corner. The customers on the line all looking at us like, what the heck? So an hour or so passes by and manager comes back, visibly tired. She apologized to us for running late and was about to start explaining what happened when Karen comes barging into the back room. Karen.
Manager, you finally arrived. You wouldn't believe how that kid threatened me. You should fire him. He insulted me and acted like as if he was in charge and didn't let me connect to the Wi-Fi.
Manager. My assistant manager? Long pause. Like awkward, long, silent pause. Look, Karen, just because you're my mom's best friend doesn't mean that you can come here and threaten my staff however you please. Get out of the back room. Karen, without a hint of shame.
Well, at least I want a refund. While trying to connect my coffee got all cold.
Manager. OP, did I teach you how to issue refunds? Come with me. We head to the cashier and manager shows me through the steps. She had already done in the past. Guess she was just making sure I remembered. But then I got an idea. Me. Sorry to interrupt you, manager, but I did warn Karen that the reception was bad in that spot and she chose to sit there anyway. Not to mention the scene she caused later. I don't think she's entitled to a refund. Karen.
That's a lie. I would never raise my voice,
she said, screaming once again. Manager. Is that so, cashier? Cashier, and all her glorious pro-barista aura, muttered the most amazing yet calm accusation while not even lifting her eyes from the coffee she was working on. I mean, yeah, she was screaming like for 10 minutes. Even got my ears hurting. She's crazy. If you had heard it, the delivery, something I can't express in written form. Manager. Well, Karen, I sadly can't offer you a refund.
But...
Sorry, Karen. See you another day. Karen left angry, fuming, screaming at the poor customer service and how manager's mom would hear about it. Manager. Sorry about that, she's my mom's neighbor. Ever since she found out I work as a manager here, she comes and always causes a scene. After that, we all had our laugh. The day went as usual, and another Karen had been stopped. Some extra info. This was a very small store, usually 5 people working the positions. Very quiet place with some office buildings, nothing crazy. I'm also aware that Starbucks leadership structures vary wildly from country to country, so while my contract said assistant manager, in practice was more of a supervisor. And no, I no longer work for Starbucks. Honestly, I hate that company, but the pay was really good for an entry-level job. Plus, it being my first contractual work was good on the resume, so I sold my soul for 3 years. It wasn't fun, but after the horrid first year, the rest was bearable. Anyway, that's all. Hope you liked my little tale. Speaking of Starbucks, what's your favorite thing to get from Starbucks? Please let us know.
I could really go for a coconut frappuccino right now. Yeah.
Am I the jerk for telling my boyfriend he ruined my birthday? It was my birthday today. I took the day off work and wanted to spend it doing things I wanted to do. I wanted to watch a movie I've been wanting to watch, but my boyfriend doesn't want to. I was going to order lunch from my favorite restaurant that he won't eat at because he doesn't trust places that aren't a chain, and I wanted to just relax. I basically just wanted to do things I wanted without listening to him complain about it. Well, he decided to surprise me by taking the day off too. He took over my whole day. Instead of watching the movie I wanted, he insisted on watching the news because it's part of our history. When I left the room, he followed me. I said I didn't want to hear about this on my birthday, but he just kept talking about it and trying to make me watch it with him. Then, instead of getting the lunch I wanted, he threw a fit and ordered from another place that I don't like. I was angry at that point, and he was acting like he did me this great favor by showing up and doing all this stuff I didn't want to do. I decided I wasn't going to let him ruin anything else, so I ordered dinner from my favorite restaurant. He started talking about dinner, and I said I had already ordered from the restaurant I wanted, and he started fussing at me about how it should be a place we both like. I said, "Oh, really? Is that why he ordered lunch from a place I don't like and watched things I repeatedly said I didn't want to watch?" He said it wasn't the same thing, and I said it was exactly the same thing. And what he actually meant to say was it should only be things he likes. He tried to make it out like I was being ungrateful that he took the day off and said I should be happy he bothered to take a vacation day for my birthday. I lost my temper completely then. I said that I never asked him to take the day off. In fact, I had been looking forward to a day where I could do the things I wanted to do and not the things he wanted to do because we always did what he wanted. I said I wasn't grateful he took the day. He completely ruined my day by making it all about what he wanted to do instead of giving me my own dang birthday to do what I wanted and not what he wanted. My food came shortly after, so I locked myself in my bedroom to eat and watch my movie, and he's complaining outside my door about how I ruined the whole day. My sister says he's being a controlling jerk, but he seems to think I'm being the jerk here. Edit. To address the questions of why I'm with him, he was my first real serious relationship, and I don't know if I really saw the red flags for what they were. At first, I thought, oh, he's just assertive. But now, I think my sister is right, and he's just controlling. In the beginning, it wasn't like this really, but it's definitely gotten worse over time. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk, or is her boyfriend? Please let us know.
Of course her boyfriend's the jerk. I get the creeps just reading about this guy.
Entitled customer mad that I won't keep the restaurant open until 12 a.m. so he can ring in the new year. This was about 4 years ago, but I just remembered about it now. When I was 18, I was the manager at a mom-and-pop restaurant that was connected to a hotel. The holidays were always super busy, with mainly big groups of people who had come into town together for vacation. A week before New Year's, I got a call from a hotel guest asking if we would be willing to keep the restaurant open until 12 a.m. so he and his family of 10, 6 kids, 4 adults, could ring in the new year there. I get them all wanting to be together and can't hate someone for trying. I explained to him that because it was New Year's, our normal closing time of 9 p.m. would actually be changed to 8 p.m. This was not my idea, but the owner's. He then started yelling at me, telling me it was inappropriate and it shows poor work ethic to leave early. He then asked me how in the world I thought it was okay for us to close early so we can all go drink and party when he wanted to dine there and give us extra business. I let him know that it was not my decision, but the owner's, and the reason we were closing early was because we were understaffed and those working the night shift would have to be back in the morning time to open the restaurant, and we wanted to ensure everyone would get enough rest to work a busy breakfast shift. He then told me that we should have been smart enough to hire more people on for the holidays.
Right, because it's so easy to hire temporary people to work Christmas and New Year's. While we were understaffed, my excuse to him wasn't entirely true, but it was the best I could come up with at the time. I would like to think if this situation happened now, I would tell him that service industry workers deserve time off to celebrate the holidays just as much as they do. I would also explain to him that business-wise, we would probably lose money paying the cooks, waitstaff, and dishwasher to stay for 4 adults because realistically, the kids will not eat much and we would not get drinks sales from them. While I understand 8 p.m. is early to be closing, it really is no one's business. We were not a chain business or affiliated with the hotel in any way, so no one else but us had a say in our hours. Even with us stopping service at 8 p.m. that night, I still didn't get out until about 11 p.m. with all the lingering customers and cleanup. Am I the jerk for kicking my son out of my house after he canceled my job interview? Please hear me out first. I'm a single mom, 45, of a 20-year-old son, Chris. Chris is in college. He studies engineering. Being a single mom at a young age was not easy for me. Despite everything I've been through, despite my own family giving up on me, I made sure my son got the life he deserves. He was/is my everything. I worked several jobs that were different from each other's. I was able to own a home after years of renting, and more importantly, I was able to provide Chris with an opportunity for education. Recently, Chris moved back in with me because he no longer could pay rent. His next semester is starting soon, and he's been talking to me about the possibility of selling my house and buying a house in the city where he studies so he will no longer pay rent, and said that it was better to move. I declined for several reasons. 1. I grew up here. My old friends live here. 2. The city is expensive. 3. This home means a lot. It represents my hard work and sacrifices. Chris didn't like that. He threw a fit and kept bringing it up, trying to convince me to do it. Last week, he kept pressuring me. I told him that I found a potential job at a company, and it was an opportunity because I had been looking for 3 months. He took it as in, I don't want to move because of my new job, but it's not true. Yesterday, I found out that he contacted the company and canceled my interview, and then deleted my email. I use a computer and it's in the office, so he gets access to it. He told me he wanted to check his college website for some reason, and I thought nothing of it. That was the night before. I found out yesterday morning that someone canceled my interview. I confronted Chris about it. First he denied, then he said that the company wasn't what I deserved anyway, and I can find a better position when we move to the city. I was so mad at him for ruining this for me and pressuring me to move, leaving me no choice. I felt as if he was trying to sell the house from under me after he said he found a potential buyer and just wanted to make things go smoothly, and all I have to say is yes. I yelled at him and argued with him, telling him that he was an adult and should manage his own issues. Told him to get a job, but not expect me to turn my life upside down for him. He yelled back, saying I was selfish, and I ended up kicking him out of the house. His aunt knew and was yelling at me for what I did, saying I was treating him poorly and he was hurt by me. Just to clarify, his aunt is my sister. She doesn't have kids of her own, and Chris considers her as a second mother to him. She's always defending him no matter the reason. He hasn't left town yet, and she wants me to call him. I need to mention that this is not how he is normally. I have no idea what's going on, but he was constantly talking about it and was insisting so much, it got me upset and worried honestly. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk or is her son? Please let us know.
Not only would I have kicked him out, I'd get a restraining order against him.
Only take breaks when I tell you to? Sure, no problem. I used to work at a call center where we would get flooded with calls constantly. This is a story of how a busybody boss thought they understood everything since they were in charge. At the work, we were given 2 15-minute breaks and 1 45-minute break for lunch. The breaks were scheduled into our day so you could see when they would be, but this would change day by day. My role was a bit different than the normal agents as I was specifically dealing with the higher issue calls. These calls could take up to 1 hour to complete, and the caller would need to stay on the line unless they were fine with a callback later, but this was rarely the case. Since I never knew when I would be getting these calls, my break times were a shot in the dark if I would or wouldn't be on a call. I would just take them as soon as the call was done if they ever intersected, which they did 99% of the time. Enter my boss. During a performance review, I hit all the marks except for attendance. I asked about this as I know I missed a few days, but always with a reasonable update for time frame and never had a no-show day where there's no warning that I'm not coming in. My boss stated that attendance also applies to break and lunch times, and since I rarely took them at the requested time, I was getting written up. I explained my role that they hired me for and the challenges involved.
They did not care and stated I needed to take breaks when I was told to. I asked for them to send me an email so that I could print it out, put it on my desk, and never forget again. My boss smiled ear to ear, probably because they thought I was groveling at that point, and sure enough, they did, stating in the email, "You must take your breaks only when the schedule tells you to. No time else. There is no excuse." I saved it, printed it out, sent a copy to my own email, and followed it to the letter. Next time that happened, the same day of course, had the long call crossing over with a break issue. I asked the customer if it would be okay for a callback. They said no. I stated that unfortunately I cannot stay on the line as I'm required to take my break. They became enraged and demanded to speak with my boss. I told my boss. They said that I need to apologize and finish the call. I showed them the email they just sent me and said, "You told me to take my break at this time no matter what. I'm just doing what you told me to do. I'm taking my break. Would you like the customer transferred over, or should I just hang up?" They took the call over, and from that day on, I never had a missed attendance mark. Gosh, busybody bosses are the worst. Have you ever had a boss who really got on your nerves? If so, what did they do? Please let us know.
You know what gets on my nerves is when our viewers forget to smash that like button. Come on, do it for the re.
Am I the jerk for refusing to pay for my daughter's dental procedures? My daughter is 24 years old. For her entire life, she has neglected her teeth. Her dental hygiene is non-existent. She would refuse to brush or floss her teeth at all. Wouldn't even use mouthwash. My first thought was that she may be suffering from depression or some sort of mental health issue, so I immediately took her to professionals. However, even after years of doctors, therapists, medication, and specialists, my daughter still refused to take care of her teeth. I got multiple opinions from multiple professionals. They all said the same thing. "We don't know why she won't brush her teeth. Try XYZ. There's nothing more we can do for you." I spent years crying, begging, bargaining, and screaming at her in an attempt to get her to take it seriously. She never did, but under my care, she'd at least brush her teeth occasionally, 2 to 3 times a week. I kept trying up until she reached adulthood and moved out. At that point, there was nothing more I could do for her, and I assumed she completely stopped caring for her teeth at that point. Recently, she went to the dentist because of severe pain after putting it off for years. They discovered her teeth were pretty much completely ruined. She had to have most of them pulled. She called me crying about how ugly she felt, and she begged me to pay for her to get crowns and veneers. I refused for several reasons. 1, it would be incredibly expensive. We're talking upwards of $10,000. 2, she got herself into this mess by not taking care of her teeth, despite me warning her throughout her entire life and doing all I could to help her. 3, she has yet to show she can maintain proper dental hygiene, and without proper maintenance, she will likely ruin the crowns and veneers anyways. I told her as much and said she'll have to figure it out herself. She's obviously furious and thinks I'm a huge jerk. She's saying I'm a horrible mother and betraying her by not paying for it. It's honestly starting to get to me, and I'm doubting my decision. I can technically afford it, but I would have to use money from my retirement fund. So here I am, asking for opinions from the internet. Am I the jerk? Well, what do you think? Should OP pay for her daughter's dental procedure or not? Please let us know.
Absolutely not. You warned her for 24 years. Sometimes people just have to learn the hard way.
No, my coffee is always free. This happened about 7 years ago when I was working at the local convenience store. We've got the crazy lady and we've got the coworker. I got in around my normal 11 p.m. time and settled in for a slow night of training with my coworker who was on his last day with the company. Things were quiet and going pretty smoothly until around 1 a.m. Steve and I were jamming to some classic rock, but turned it off when Karen enters. A small, frail-looking lady in about 20 jackets comes in carrying a duffel bag. She set the bag next to a shelf which sat behind the register. I couldn't see the bag, so at first I didn't even notice it was behind me. Karen went straight to the self-serve coffee and pulled out a coffee mug from underneath one of her jackets. She seemed out of it, talking to herself and muttering under her breath, but I'd be out of it too at 1 a.m., so I let Karen just do her thing. Until her bag starts to bark. I'm confused as heck, since I hadn't seen her place down the bag and certainly didn't think there would be a dog inside. My coworker lets Karen know that we don't allow animals inside the store and she'll have to take him outside. This is as close as I can remember to what was said. Karen:
But I don't have a dog.
Coworker: Lady, we can hear it barking. It wants out of the duffel bag.
I'll let it out, but it's not my dog, just my bag.
Coworker: Well, regardless of who owns the dog, you brought it in, so you'll have to take it out.
Fine, I'll just take my coffee and go then, since you don't want me here.
Okay, so it'll be $1.50 for the coffee refill. Thanks for understanding. At this point, I can see Karen shaking with rage. Her eyes may have well rolled back into her head.
No, my coffee is always free.
Steve, no it's not. All refills of drip coffee are $1.50.
But he said I could have it for free. Take it up with the big man, not me. I get mine for free.
Coworker, who are you talking about? There's just been my coworker and I. What big man?
I don't want to say. That man upstairs. He told me.
Coworker, lady, this is a one-floor building. We don't have an upstairs.
God told me in a dream that I could come here and always have free refills. Are you going to tell God no?
At this point, my coworker had enough and told her just to go. But if she came back, we would call the police on her. I never saw her again. Well, in that store anyway. Dog seemed fine when she took it out of the duffel bag. It was a small Pomeranian.
Am I the jerk for not telling my family which of my kids is biologically mine? I have 2 kids, Clark and Kent. While they have the same father, only one of them is biologically my kid. They were born within 6 months of each other. The boys are currently 6, and for various reasons, I have full custody of both of them. I didn't speak to anyone in my family for several years, and we got back in touch in 2019. Due to the boys' ages, my family know I couldn't have carried both, unless I have the gestation period of a hamster or the longest labor ever. I've explained to them how this all came to be, but in my explanation, I neglected to tell them which was my biological kid. Due to my ex having a type, the other woman looked enough like me that the boys could pass for twins. Same dark hair, blue eyes, pale skin, and both cleft chins and dimples. My brother jokes that they look like tiny supermen. People who know them refer to them as twins because aside from a few minor differences, they're practically identical. Frankly, if they were closer in age and I'd had full custody of both from the time they were born, I suspect I would have mixed them up a lot as babies. Shortly before Clark's birthday last year, my mom asked if she could see Clark's birth certificate. I asked why, and she said she wanted to know the exact time he was born, so I told her. She asked if she could see the certificate anyway. I asked why. She said she just wanted to check. I said I'm his mother. I know when he was born. Then she asked the same thing about Kent, and we went through the same conversation all over again. Mom eventually admitted that she just wanted to see the birth mother's name on each certificate, which isn't even how that works, and I told her as much. This led to an argument where my stance was that I'm their mother. Biology is irrelevant. Mom says if biology is irrelevant, then it's not a big deal to tell her which of them is biologically mine. I said if she's so hung up on biology, then clearly it's a big deal to her, and I don't want it to be a big deal, especially as the boys themselves don't know. Mom feels this is incredibly selfish, narcissistic, and overall wrong. She feels that if biology isn't such a big issue, then I should have no problem telling her whether Clark or Kent is my biological son, and that accusing her of potential favoritism or something similar with her bio grandkid is an unfair judgment with no actual reasoning to it. My boyfriend agrees that I shouldn't tell anyone, at least until my sons have decided for themselves if they want to know and want other people to know. But my entire family agrees with Mom that I'm being unreasonably selfish and that my actions now are more likely to cause issues than Mom's potential actions later. Am I in the wrong? Well, what do you think? Should OP tell her mom or not? Please let us know.
I think Grandma should mind her own business, to be honest.
He doesn't work here. We just want to buy our stuff and go. For reference, we've got me, we've got my best friend, and we've got the old lady who we'll call Karen. This happened a few days ago. So for starters, me and my best friend have been friends for a long time, since we were like 13 to 14. We're both the same age now, 19, and are thick as thieves. There's a grocery store near our neighborhood, and we frequently go there if the gas station doesn't have what we're looking for. So me and best friend walk into the grocery store. We needed marshmallows and something else I don't recall right now. Now for context, both of us wear alternative styles. I wear a large, long hoodie, baggy black pants, and a tank top. My hair is dyed 2 colors, and I have lots of facial piercings, something that is typically not allowed for in-store employees at this grocery store. Best friend is wearing something similar, all black get-up and platform boots. He doesn't have piercings, but he is wearing eyeliner, so neither of us look like any of the store employees. We get our marshmallows and go looking for the next item. We find the aisle it's in, joking between each other like normal, when suddenly there's a loud, "Excuse me,"
Now, both of us bristle at the tone. Being young, both of us having PTSD, so angry adults yelling at us is not something we enjoy. We both turn and look at what I can only describe as a textbook Karen. I'm talking dressed in athletic wear that was 2 sizes too small. The haircut, worse was the giant gaudy turquoise necklace and matching earrings that clashed horribly with her outfit. She looked like she was somewhere around 50 to 60 years old. Best friend says, "Yes, ma'am," as she was obviously trying to get our attention, and neither of us want to be rude at the moment. Plus, both of us had worked customer service, and it was a habit. Karen rolls her eyes.
Finally, I've been trying to get your attention since you helped her.
She points at me.
With her stuff. Now, I need you to go check at the back for
something that I honestly can't remember after this crap show. Best friend and me are staring at this woman like she had grown 2 heads. How in the world could she possibly think he works here? Best friend replies with, "Ma'am, I don't work here." Now, you'd think this would be the end of it, but like many of the stories here, it wasn't. That set her off for some ungodly reason. And when I say she went from 0 to 100 in a matter of seconds, I mean her face turned bright red, eyebrows nearly molted together with how hard she was scowling, and her fists were clenched so tight, I'm surprised her fake nails didn't cut her hands. She points at best friend in the nastiest, most hateful tone I've ever heard and says,
"Yes, you do. I saw you helping her."
She then points to me, and her finger was, I kid you not, an inch away from my face. Both me and best friend are very protective of each other. We've been best friends forever, and we don't like when other people make either of us uncomfortable. So best friend gently takes my shoulders and moves me away from her, reiterating that he does not, in fact, work here. He barely gets the words out before Karen shushes him, and I'm pretty sure there was spit flying. She had pulled her mask off at this point and started to scream at him.
"God, your kind are all the same. No manners, no respect. How dare you pretend you don't work here? You obviously do."
Best friend and me both looked down at what he's wearing. Mainly the 4 to 5 inch platform boots adorned with straps, buckles, and silver plating over the toe part. Then at her.
"Well, what do you have to say for yourself?"
She screamed, like it was us who were in the wrong here. Not only were both of us upset at being yelled at for no reason, but we were particularly upset at referring to best friend as your kind. So we were dealing with not only a numbskull, but a jerk as well. At this point, after staring at each other for around a minute, I find the courage to step forward and try to defuse the situation. "Ma'am, he really doesn't work here, and I'm trying really hard not to be angry right now, but you're being very rude, and I want you to leave us alone." Karen is having none of it.
"Mind your own business. And as for you, I want your manager. Now!"
She looked like one of those mole rats, except angrier. At this point, we've already grabbed what we needed, and seeing as how we have no obligation to stay any longer, and certainly don't want to keep dealing with her BS, we start walking off. We were quite literally astounded, trying to understand how she could have possibly thought best friend worked here. I mean, it was possible she had seen us before in that store, and sometimes after getting off work, we would go back and pick up a few items, still wearing uniforms. So I can kind of see how she might have assumed that, but even so, that was highly unlikely. Anyways, I hoped that would be the end of it, but no dice. We hear her worn-out sneakers squeaking rapidly against the floor before she sinks her talons into boyfriend's jacket and uses what I have to assume was all of her strength to pull him backwards. Normally, in those boots, best friend might have fallen, but his guard was all the way up, having had to deal with much worse than this, and he was able to stick his foot out behind him and stop himself from falling. His boot, however, and mind you, his boots are made out of thick, heavy rubber that weighs a lot more than you'd think, landed on the front half of Karen's foot. She lets out an ear-piercing yowl that reminded me of 100 burning mice. Best friend is now visibly angry, and so am I. He turns around with a very heavy glare, while I immediately grab her wrists and yank them off of best friend. The moment I do this, Karen throws herself to the ground and starts screaming like she's being hurt. I'm sure somewhere during this commotion, an actual store employee heard all the screaming and yelling and the crashing of a whole Monster Energy can display Karen took with her to the ground, because one showed up around the corner and looked visibly dumbfounded. Both me and best friend are internally panicking because we both look like 2 kids who just pushed an old lady to the ground. I try to ask this employee for help. We'll name him Dan for expediency's sake. And I barely get a word in before Karen stands up, acting like she's been hurt.
These two just assaulted me.
She screamed in a very loud voice that made Dan cringe, along with me and best friend.
I want him fired, and both of them arrested. Call the police.
I turned around to yell at Karen, because at this point I was so angry at her, I wanted to put her into an armbar and get her back for putting her hands on best friend. But best friend stopped me and asked very calmly to speak to a manager. Karen was huffing and puffing, but she managed to continue her tirade.
No, I want to speak to the manager. You don't get to speak to the manager. You are a piece of crap and rude, and I'm going to have you arrested.
Dan had taken best friend's request and quite literally ran with it, and soon enough there was a manager following Dan back to the scene of the crime. The entire time, best friend had put himself between me and Karen. The manager had an obvious customer service smile on his face and addressed us. Hello, what's the problem here? Neither of us even bothered opening our mouths because we predicted Karen launching into a loud rant. Sure enough, she instantly began to yell.
These two assaulted me. He called me names, and I want him fired. And the police called.
This is not exactly word for word, but basically she lied through her teeth. The manager looked at us, bewildered, as we helplessly stared back. Finally, he looks at Karen and calmly puts out his hands in the universal pose anyone in customer service knows as the calm down gesture. Ma'am, neither of these people work here. They're customers like you. This sends her into a rage, wherein she called best friend multiple names and insults me as she screams about how she wants the police called, she was assaulted, blah blah blah. Manager finally gets in a word and says he'll call the police, just as soon as he watches the cameras to make sure what happened. Karen's face drops, like she forgot cameras existed and turned pale once she realized how deep the crap she got herself into was. She quickly backpedals and tells the manager not to call the police. She has an appointment and just wants to go. I could see the look on the manager's face, mostly just his eyes. Everyone but Karen had their mask on, and I know he's probably realized by now, from her language and behavior, that she was probably in the wrong. So he turns to us and asks if we wanted to call the police, in a slightly unsure tone. I wanted to, but best friend says no, we just wanted to go as well. Karen looked relieved, which upset me even further, but we bought our items and left. The end wasn't as satisfying as I wish it was. I really wanted to get back at her for the way she treated us, but I'm sure karma will give her what she deserves. To this day, I still don't understand how she came to the conclusion that someone wearing a full gothic get-up was a store employee. I hope she didn't drive herself to the store. Her vision must be terrible. Speaking of gothic clothes, what kind of clothes do you wear? Please let us know.
I like shirts that say live, laugh, love.
Tell me not to come in if I don't comply? Okay, deal. This happened a long time ago at a company we'll call The Company, with a plant manager we'll call Richard. Richard was paid production bonuses, and in his infinite wisdom, greed, he told his superiors that we could get out more production than two plants our size could get out reasonably. With the aging equipment he refused to replace or repair, we were getting seriously behind and now needed to run 24/7 just to stay as behind as we already were. A side note here, our handbooks stated quite clearly that Sunday work was strictly voluntary and was to be requested by the supervisor by Thursday at lunch. Needless to say, attendance on Sundays was abysmal at best, since many of us had families and other important things in our life. Richard decided this wouldn't do and called a plant-wide meeting on one particular Thursday right before lunch. Richard:
It has come to my attention that many of you are abusing
Yes, he actually said that.
the Sunday voluntary workday status, so I am changing this effective immediately.
He didn't have that authority.
So if any of you choose not to come in on Sunday, don't bother coming back on Monday. Understand?
Me: Are you serious? Richard:
Yes.
Me: Okay, with a crap-eating grin. For clarification, we were working 2 shifts, 12 hours each, round the clock at this point, and apparently he had this meeting with them as well. Fallout. Me and about 3 others got together and all decided to give him what he wanted. We didn't come in on Sunday or Monday. By Monday morning around 7 a.m., my phone was blowing up with texts and missed calls. Finally I answered, and it was Richard asking me,
Where the heck are you?
I politely said, enjoying my day off. Thanks again. Richard yelled back,
What do you mean, day off? You're supposed to be here.
I said, No, you told us that if we didn't come to work on Sunday, not to come in on Monday. And frankly, I thought that was very nice of you to give us an extra day off like that. Richard, realizing he's trapped, changes tone slightly.
Well, that's not what I meant, and you know it. Now get in here as soon as you can.
I said nicely. Nope, you can't back out now. Next time, say what you mean. Have a nice day. See you tomorrow. Then I hung up and turned off my phone. I had a great day playing games on PC with my wife. Edit. I forgot to mention that after a few other incidents like this, the company finally fired Richard and now has a much better plant manager. It's a great place to work now. You are banned from the lobby for 5 hours. Howdy, I'm good. Currently stitching my sides back together after last night's idiot encounter. This is mostly because I'm bored, but also to let anyone new to the field know that no matter what, some people are just horrible human beings. Don't let them get under your skin. Come here and tell us about them so they don't end up living rent-free in your head. That having been said, on with the show. Let me paint you a picture. It's late, roughly 4 a.m., and it's quiet. At this point, my property walks had been reduced to chatting with the bunnies and watching our freshly painted building dry. Given the holiday, my direct boss man was working the evening shift, so I know everything was done better than I could hope to achieve. I know this after nearly 2 years of working with him as a GSA and him getting promoted to said FOM position. Highly deserved, by the way. Anyways, the night has been dull to say the least. Imagine my surprise when I receive a phone call that could be more considered a screeching threat than a polite conversation. Her issue? Let's see. First, there was the fact that both of her hotspots aren't working. Okay, sucks, but not our doing, issue or problem. Then, this crappy room that doesn't have the Wi-Fi info anywhere. And finally, she's been calling the desk only to have it ring hundreds of times before hanging up. Since last night, y'all. So, order of operations. I open up her room and our Wi-Fi site to make sure everything is copacetic. It is, but I only request that she stop screaming at me and let her know that the Wi-Fi info could be found on the back of her keycard packet. Now she doesn't give a hoot because I'm a jerk and she's gonna sue me. I reminded her again to knock it off and hung up. 5, 4, 3. She calls right back and immediately starts in on her tirade. I cut her off with my big boy voice and tell her that she will stop speaking to me like this, that I'm the night manager, so tough luck, and if she continues, I will have her removed. Y'all, please believe me when I tell you the next part. She told me, and I quote,
I will speak to you however I want. You're nothing but a servant.
I laughed so hard that I'm surprised I got the next part out. Choking back tears, because I've honestly never had this one thrown at me, I asked her if she seriously just called me a servant. I then told her, still laughing mind you, that she was banned from the lobby until 9 a.m. when Big Boss Man arrives, and that if she chose to violate that, everyone on the clock knows to call PD immediately. Speaking with my manager today, it turns out she was a peach from the let-go. Offended when told to move her car after leaving it in front for 3 hours, screaming about how our pool is too cold. For the record, it's a nice 72 degrees. It being roughly 50 degrees outside doesn't matter to her. His list goes on, followed up with a firm apology for not bouncing her earlier and my having to deal with her. I'm not upset. My job description is to deal with jerks. And besides, it gave me a funny story to tell. And that is the story of how I'm being sued for telling a woman where she could find her Wi-Fi login. Looks like 2021 is getting started with a bang. Happy New Year's, y'all. My lunch lady kept me from getting the correct meal after taking insulin. I'm a 16-year-old guy. I'm pretty normal. I play video games, hang out with friends, have a good job, all that. But the only abnormal thing about me is that I have type 1 diabetes. I've been diagnosed for about a bit more than a year and a half. I've kept good control over it, and the doctors are always impressed when I have a checkup. Bragging aside, I'm a junior in a pretty small high school in the middle of Kansas. One of the things I do is I take insulin 10 to 15 minutes before I eat, so it has time to get into effect. With the school lunch, there are 2 options, a chicken salad and a cheeseburger. I decided to go with the cheeseburger. I take my insulin and go up the line. There are 2 separate tables, each with 2 white to-go boxes with the food in them. I grab a box from the left table, and before I take 2 steps, my friend points out to me that that's the salad. I set the box back down and go to grab the other box, but the lunch lady shouts at me,
Hey, don't you dare.
I look at her, and she looks at me like I just slapped someone in the face. I ask what's wrong, and she said that I already grabbed the salad, so I have to take the salad. Note, I didn't even open the box. I explained to her that I'm a diabetic and already took insulin. She shakes her head and says in a sickly sweet tone,
I'm sorry, that's not my problem. Take the salad and go sit down now.
I tried once more to tell her the situation, but she just pointed at the salad table and tells me to take the salad or I don't get anything. I'm a little upset at this point, so I take the salad and go off to my table with my friends and tell them the situation. They removed the vending machines in the cafeteria over the summer, so there was no way for me to get the correct amount of carbs without stealing another kid's cheeseburger. One of my friends tells me I should go get the principal quickly before the insulin fully sets in. I go to the office and tell him and the counselor the situation, a little panicked, because it had been well over 10 minutes since I took the insulin. I'm very tight with the principal, so he walked me back up to the cafeteria and talked to the lunch lady. He tells her, "Lunch lady, give him the cheeseburger. He really needs it." She responds to him by saying,
But he already took a salad. He can deal with it.
Principal just sighs, grabs the cheeseburger box, and shoved it into my hands and tells me to go sit down. I listen to him and walk back to the table. I sit relatively close to the lunch line, so I and my friends can barely hear the principal talk to her. "How you acted was truly out of line. I thought you understood to treat his and other diabetic kids' situation with care and understand." He went on for another minute and ended up just telling her off and heading back to his office, and I ate in peace. I'm glad that she got told off, and maybe she'll know better next time. What would you choose right now, the salad or the cheeseburger? Please let us know.
I really hope we get some cheeseburger comments.
Idiot neighbor sells us back our rubbish and says we owe him money. I used to have a crazy neighbor who caused a lot of problems in this block, but thankfully he left. Now I have an even more crazy junkie neighbor. He goes in the bin room and rips open every bag of rubbish and goes through it all, including people's mail. Then says he's going to use people's details to get a loan, etc. Wouldn't work, but that's not the point. He then goes door to door in this block, trying to sell the stuff he just pulled out of the bin for this building. So he's literally trying to sell us back our own rubbish. Everyone is mad with him for the mess he makes in the bin room and for trying to sell us our own rubbish. But even worse, he now keeps telling people they owe him money when they don't, for his head kicked in recently for saying it to my neighbor's girlfriend. Then the other day he was trying to sell me crap while I was waiting for the lift, and I said no, so he went to my door after I left and gave my boyfriend a roll of wallpaper, then said my boyfriend had to pay him for it later. We didn't want his stupid wallpaper. My boyfriend said, "Nah, keep it." But this idiot neighbor was like, "Your girlfriend owes me 25 pounds, so you just need to give it to me now." I have never owed him anything. In fact, he still owes me the 10 pounds he borrowed when I first met him. But more importantly, he's already had his head kicked in for him saying someone's girlfriend owes him money when she didn't. Why is he still trying it? I want a normal neighbor for once, who doesn't try to demand money from everyone. Oh yeah, he also feels entitled to demand my meds, saying he needs them so he can get to sleep. And if I say no or give him 2, he's like, "But you gave me 6 before." I'm prescribed them because I need them, not so some idiot can take them off me. Sorry, I kinda rushed this and probably didn't make it very interesting. Edit. Just saw him again. He said, "Look, someone's put a unicorn doormat at my door. I think it was..." Insert name of the neighbor who beat him up. I told him, "You brought that in yourself the other day." He insisted that wasn't the case, and I said, "Yes, you did. I saw you, and when you went to my door insisting to my boyfriend that I owed you 25 pounds, you were loony as usual." Then he was all like, "OMG, sorry, I'm so embarrassed now," then kept apologizing. I just laughed and said whatever. Sounds like he genuinely doesn't realize how wrecked he gets and how much of a nightmare he is. Am I the jerk for not reassuring my boyfriend I was fine after he didn't help me after my car broke down by his house? I was driving to the store and my car crapped out on me. Turns out the alternator failed and the engine stalled out. I pulled over to the side of a remote road. It was cold and I wasn't dressed for the weather without the car's heater. Dumb of me to not wear a warmer coat or think to put a blanket in my car for the winter just in case, but it was supposed to be a quick errand. I called my boyfriend who lived very close to where I was broken down and he didn't pick up. I texted him saying I was broken down and I needed a ride. Could he help? He said no, he had a friend visiting. I said it was freezing cold and I needed to get out of the cold fast because the car heater was broken too. He said, "Can't you ask a friend? This is a bad time." I called a friend who was 35 minutes away and he got on the road right away, and we made plans to have his brother, who works for a towing company, get it for cheap the next day as a favor.
We hung out for a few hours, and then I went to bed early. I accidentally left my phone in his car, so when he left, he took it along. The next morning, I couldn't find my phone and sent an email to my friend to ask if he had seen it. He replied and said he found it in his car and he could bring it back on the weekend. I thanked him and apologized for making him make the trip twice. Anyway, I worked through the day and only checked my social media after the workday. I saw some panicked messages from my boyfriend on my Facebook asking what had happened. I didn't answer his text for 24 hours after the last thing I sent was, "Can you please come pick me up? It's freezing cold and I need to get out of the cold fast. Car heater is broken." And I wasn't picking up my phone or answering texts or social media messages. Then he went out for a drive and found my car abandoned in the dirt off the side of the road. He was convinced I had been ignoring him to spite him for not leaving right away to get me. He hadn't realized how serious it was, and he had expected if I had had trouble getting a friend to help, I'd call him and tell him I didn't have another option. I said I wasn't being petty. I was just trying to deal with my own crap when my car crapped out on me, and I honestly wasn't thinking about him at all after he brushed me off for asking for help. He said that I was stupid for not thinking that he'd be worried to be ghosted for a day after saying I was in trouble. Am I the jerk for not telling my boyfriend I was okay after he didn't want to help me after my car crapped out? Edit. I broke things off. Seriously, thank you to everyone who commented and told me this crap wasn't normal or okay. I thought I'd feel bad about ending things because I really wanted things to work out, but honestly, I feel like that's a huge weight off of my shoulders. Am I the jerk because I refuse to take money from our kid's part-time job paycheck? My husband and I have a 13-year-old. We live comfortably and admit it can get tight sometimes because we pay for piano lessons and braces. We also have prescription drug costs to manage and live in an expensive city. A few years ago, we decided to rebuild our house and add a second-floor addition to stay in the city. Our other option was to move to the boonies for more space for almost the same amount of money as house costs are crazy these days. So we rebuilt the house and then life kept going, meaning bills, everything included. We always have food on the table, but we're always paying mortgage/groceries/bills and have barely anything left over most months. We don't go on big vacations. Now, here's the am I the jerk part. Our son expressed he wants to get a part-time job at age 16 so he can buy more outside food for lunch. I pack him lunch and give him money to eat a few times a month, but he wants to eat more often with his friends during school and buy more things he wants. Now, we buy him gifts on Christmas and birthdays. We got him a PS4 a few years ago and a game on his birthday, and we buy him clothes he needs. He wants to have extra pocket money. We thought about it and said he can work only if he will keep track of his studies, might give him some financial responsibility. Then my husband said, once he works, he will chip into this household. He will pay like $100 to $200 a month. And I'm like, heck no, I won't take money from my minimum wage earning kid. My husband always chipped in and helped his parents pay mortgage. They were never very well off. I'm not saying that's a bad thing he did, but we both work, and it was our choice to rebuild this house to be a 2-story dream house and not our son's responsibility to pay for it. Am I the jerk because I won't take any money from my son? Husband says I spoil him, and I think I definitely don't. I wish I could buy him more things, but I give him only on special occasions. In-laws say I am babying him. A few friends sided with me, some sided with my husband, saying it will build character. Am I the jerk? Am I babying or spoiling him? Edit. Thank you for everyone's responses. I read through them all. I'm going to stay firm and say we won't take any of his money. We will, as we have always done, encourage he continue saving in his bank account. We will continue to teach him financial responsibility. I like the ideas of offering incentives like matching his college fund contributions. Well, who do you agree with? OP or her husband? Please let us know.
Ooh, I can't wait to see what our listeners have to say about this one.
Am I the jerk for making food for my dogs with meat against my boyfriend's wishes? So I have 3 dogs that I adore. They're my babies, and I've always been a dog person. I make homemade dog food for them out of chicken, beef, carrots, rice, eggs, etc. I change it up every day. The homemade food I do every other day, and in between I feed them canned wet food. Anyways, I'm a vegetarian and my boyfriend is vegan. We both do it for health reasons. I can't have most meats. Although he went from vegetarian to vegan in the last year and could be kinda preachy about the health benefits and sustainability of veganism. He's been into the vegetarian/vegan lifestyle longer than I have, but he usually checks himself when he gets obnoxious. Recently, he asked that I stop making dog food at home though.
Well, I told him no way. My pups love the variety, and it's a perfectly balanced diet. He was like,
Well, the dog food will be just as good, but I don't want chicken and beef in my fridge.
No, it's my fridge too, and that's what I told him. He wants me to just buy canned dog food, so we don't have to buy, store, and cook meat in our home. He's fine with pre-made dog food in the pantry. He also said our home isn't truly meatless because of this, which he seems to really want to be able to say for whatever reason. He's already kind of bitter that we're not animal product free, because I still eat cheese. He kind of backed off, but he went to the store for groceries, and we have a shared list. I needed more stuff for the dog food, and usually we trade shopping duties. He went without telling me and didn't buy the meat which I needed and said,
Well, go buy it on your own.
and that's petty in my opinion. I was gonna do all the shopping, but instead he wants to waste both our time and gas. I got the meat anyways, and he was upset and said we're not real vegans because I buy dead animal flesh. I told him he's being annoying and I won't listen. They're our dogs, which he also loves, and they need what's best for them. And I don't care if it causes us to lose some vegan points or whatever. He accused me of not taking him seriously and that I was treating him like an idiot and we weren't compromising. Well, who do you agree with? OP or their boyfriend? Please let us know.
Oh, how I love these stories about vegans.
Get married and have babies because you owe us grandkids. I'm a 38-year-old woman. I have a great career, a loving boyfriend who's 31, great pets and friends. I have never ever wanted kids. 5 years ago, I ended a relationship with a man named Jason, name changed, who I thought wanted the same things I did. We had been together for 2 years in 2015. We had traveled together, read comics, play video games, and do all kinds of fun things. I had always been honest with Jason that I never wanted kids. He told me he didn't either. Then, in the summer of that year, I began to notice changes in him. He would talk about how great our friends' kids are. He'd try to get me to spend time with his nephews, even though I wasn't close to them. He also began talking to my parents way more than usual. Then, one evening, he said he wanted to have dinner with my whole family. I found this a bit strange, as I don't often spend time with my family, but for him, I agreed. We were having dinner, my parents and siblings, my brother and sister were there. Then he dropped a bomb on me. He got down on one knee and said,
I love you. I want you to be the mother of my children.
What the actual heck was the first thing that came out of my mouth? We hadn't talked about getting married, much less kids. I never wanted kids and wasn't ready for marriage. I took him to another room and asked him what the heck he was thinking. He dropped another bomb and told me he had been talking to my parents about us getting married and starting a family. Let that sink in. He talked to my parents, not me, about our future. He said he had asked my dad's permission, before he asked for my consent. I was furious. All this was obviously meant to pressure me into saying yes. My mother, being nosy, walked right into the room we were in and asked what was wrong and why I had not said yes. I told her and the whole family that they needed to leave. When they left, I tore Jason a new one. I asked him how dare he assume that I was going to marry him and have kids with him when I had made it very clear that I did not want those things. He told me he was hoping that I would grow up and want something meaningful. He had the gall to act like I was the bad person in all of this. I threw him out, and the following day, I ended the relationship for good. My parents were upset at me. My mom cried about how she had been looking forward to getting grandkids from me and how I had let her down. My siblings, too, told me that I made a huge mistake by letting such a nice guy go. My dad actually told me to apologize to him. Their behavior told me that my desires and consent didn't matter to them one bit. They just wanted me to follow the same life script that they did. Till today, I haven't forgiven them, mostly because they still think that they and my ex were right. My current boyfriend and I have been together for 3 years. He and I share the same passions, and he has had a vasectomy, so I feel much more secure when he says that he doesn't want kids. My parents and siblings are no longer a part of my life. I hardly ever call or see them, and I'm happier for it. I never spoke to Jason again, though he did try to reach out to me. He maintained contact with my parents for some time, hoping that they had forced me to change my mind. I still believe that what he did was a scummy, to say the least, but I bear him no ill will, and I hope he's happy. What would you say if your parents put you in a situation like this? Please let us know.
If they want grandbabies so bad, maybe Jason should have some with grandma. Bow chicka wah wah.
I'm looking at the nutrition facts, not stocking the shelves. There have been a few times when people have stopped me to ask if I work there, but I've always just been able to say, no, sorry, and that's always the end of it. But today, that wasn't the case at all. This is one of those ordeals that never actually happens in the real world, or so I thought. This is what actually happens when things get out of hand. So a bit of background about me. I'm a bodybuilder/powerlifter, and nutrition is very important to what I do. Whenever I go shopping, I like to check the nutrition labels on ingredients and foods I'm interested in. That way, I can eat enough to not be hungry without sacrificing flavor and still fitting it into my daily calorie intake. As you can imagine, I will check multiple different versions of the same ingredients in an aisle and put them back as I search for the best option. Well, earlier today, I went on a pretty big restock for the house. I also found a bunch of new recipes that I want to try, some of which called for some ingredients I don't work with often. For the most part, the store wasn't too busy, and nobody really bothered me as I walked up and down each aisle. I also had some earbuds in and my phone out, with my shopping list on it. Keep in mind, I'm also wearing a tank top and sweatpants, which you're probably not going to get away with wearing as a grocery store employee. As I'm looking through spices in the baking aisle, I hear someone yelling over my music. It was kind of surprising since I listened to it pretty loud. So I took out an earbud and looked around, and this lady just said to me,
Can't even believe they let employees wear those stupid things.
I cut her off and said, I wouldn't know, because I don't work here. This seemed to upset her greatly as she got really aggressive when she responded by saying,
Don't you lie to me. I've seen you stocking the shelves. I'm a paying customer, and you need to help me right now.
I'm a very easygoing guy, but when a random stranger speaks to me like this, I'm not gonna put up with it. So I said, I don't have to do crap, especially if you talk to me like that. Get lost. She lost something, that's for sure. She yelled,
Excuse me? How dare you?
I just turned to walk away at that point. All of a sudden, she grabs the back of my tank top and I yank myself away, saying, What the heck, lady? Don't touch me. She takes a couple steps back, realizing that I'm not the kind of person you want to pick a fight with.
Fine then. I'm finding a manager. Say goodbye to your job, you useless jerk.
I was already putting my earbuds back in, so I just said, Whatever, lady. Bye. I grabbed my spices as she walked off in a huff and continued my shopping. I wasn't even wearing what employees at the store wear. Like, how could I possibly be mistaken for an employee? I seriously cannot stress enough how much I don't look like I work there. A couple minutes later, I'm in the next aisle over, and I see her again with a manager. I don't hear what she's saying because I've got my music on, but with the way she was pointing her finger, I'd imagine she was probably saying that I'm the one who didn't help her. They started walking up, and I took both earbuds out this time. Manager approaches me, and I hear the lady saying,
He should be fired for yelling at me and threatening me.
Manager is like, Yeah, he doesn't work here. He's wearing a tank top. That's definitely against dress code. Well, anywhere. She didn't like that answer.
Then why is he stocking your shelves?
I chime in and say, I'm comparing calories in foods and picking the best ones to stay healthy. Maybe you should try it sometime. You definitely look like you need it. She stands there for a moment with this expression on her face that looked like her brain didn't process what I just said. Then she got surprisingly calm. It was getting kind of pathetic at that point. At least I thought so. But the manager actually seemed to side with her and said, Still, I can't have anyone assaulting people in my store. Whoa, what? I must have missed the part where she said that I had assaulted her. So I ask him to repeat himself, and he explains that it is a criminal offense to assault someone and that the police could get involved. Lady goes from upset to real smug, like I'm about to get it. Good, I said. Call them down here. I'll wait. I know this store has security cameras on every aisle, and I'm so sick of people like her getting away with this level of entitlement that I really did wait. Police show up a few more minutes later. We go back to the office in the store, and they're really grilling me, asking me why I would attack someone, if I was on any drugs, etc. I'm kinda used to this treatment. People take one look at me and just assume I'm some meathead bodybuilder with roid rage. I answer all their questions by saying, Look at the security footage. It'll answer all your questions. The more I said it, the more frustrated they got. Finally, they leave the room. I just wait there patiently for about 45 minutes. Then they come back and apologize. The manager told us you assaulted her. We should have checked the footage, but you do fit the profile. I then say, Why? Because I have bigger muscles than most people? Is that a crime? They know they can't really say or do much about it since they made some pretty big assumptions.
If you'd like, you can press charges against her since she did grab you according to the security footage.
And you know what? I said that I would like to press charges. Normally I don't like to waste my time dealing with courts, but hours of my day were already wasted today, and I want her to know that she can't get away with it. A few minutes later, the manager offers to let me just go home with my groceries for free, probably a bit scared that I might sue the store for discrimination or something since I was so ready to press charges on the lady. On my way out, I saw them putting her into the back of a police car and she was screaming at the officers. I've already talked to an attorney who's in the process of obtaining the security footage. Court date is going to be in March, but should be pretty straightforward since the evidence is in my favor. I've never actually had to press charges like this before, so I have no idea what to expect. All I know is that even if she only ends up getting fined $1 or has to do even a minute of community service, I'll have a smile on my face. Anyways, that's been my crazy day. I know there are similar stories here of crazy Karens and stuff, and I always thought they were entertaining and would sometimes even think about what I'd do in a similar situation. My reaction certainly wasn't what I thought it would be though, and it wasn't as entertaining being on the receiving end of the story. At least I got some free groceries out of it though. Speaking of groceries, where do you get your groceries from? Please let us know.
Kroger all day, every day, bruh.
Your grandmother made the wraps, so I deserve them. Just remembered this, but it happened a couple of weeks ago. My mother's mother, Grandma, passed a good 15 years ago. She was so sweet and loved to knit and crochet. She taught me the basics of knitting, but nothing more. When my mother was pregnant with me, and later my brother, she had made 3 wraps, a white, pink, and a blue one. My mother used them for me and my brother and kept them. When my brother's girlfriend was pregnant with their first, they weren't interested. My mom showed them to me and asked if I wanted them. I loved them and said I did. Around 4 years ago, a cousin of mine got pregnant. She's the daughter of my father's sister, so no blood relation to my grandma. This was around the same time my brother and sister-in-law were expecting their first. My cousin wanted homemade wraps and blankets. My aunt/her mother remembered that my grandma did knit and crochet when she was alive, and she remembered that my mother had some wraps. So they called my mom and tell her the good news. My mom congratulated them and asked the usual questions. Then aunt and cousin asked if my mother still had those wraps. My mother confirmed this. Then the gates of heck opened. Cousin then said that she would love to have them. My mother replied that she was keeping them for my future children. They both scoff and indicate that such a thing might not happen for some years. My mother doesn't change her mind. Then aunt says that she should give them because they are family and this is a family heirloom. My mother was upset, as during her marriage to my dad, still going strong, they never seemed to respect her. They are never rude to their face, but there were loads of double standards in which my mom always has to do something but not getting the same thing back. She told them that the wraps were indeed family heirlooms, her family to be exact, and hung up. Other aunts called and started to say and demand that she gave up the wraps. My mother didn't budge. She was willing to give a gift, but she was not willing to give these as she knew how much these wraps meant to me. Then my father was called. My father is a very calm man who doesn't take sides if he's not involved, but he tore every aunt that called a new one about this. As the only living son and very respected member, they listened. They stopped and I got to use the blue and white wraps for my son. I'm pregnant again, almost 30 weeks. All the family knows. Cousin contacted me through the book face and said that she was pregnant too. Guess where this is going? So I congratulate her and ask the usual questions. She only answers that she is 20 weeks and then says that she needs them and wants the wraps, saying my kid will be 10 weeks old by that time and won't need them anymore. My due date is in the end of March, hers is May. Taking this into account, I say that she won't need them either. The wraps are warm, and since her due date is in May, it might be too warm already for the wraps. She calls me selfish and says that she has a right. I remind her of the fact that she didn't know my grandma, and simply because she wants something doesn't mean she gets it. She hurls some other insults my way before I block her. Her mother is the next to contact me and berates me, tells me that it's her daughter's turn and that I was being selfish. Since I had already guessed that aunt would contact, I had decided to go through their social media. Cousin was showing off a wonderful set of figurines. Nothing too expensive, but still beautiful. But one picture with the caption of, "So proud to have my grandma's set." I know this set is from her father's side of the family. So I told aunt that I wanted that set in exchange. Cue the remarks that I'm a selfish jerk, plus more colorful words, and about my audacity to claim that, and that it wasn't even from our side of the family. Cue my evil grin in response. Then how in the heck do you have the nerve to demand and claim something that isn't from your side of the family? If you and cousin can demand this from someone who you didn't know and vice versa, who isn't family, then don't be surprised that people take the same path as you do. It has been blissfully silent from those two. My parents had to laugh when I showed them the exchange. I had some aunts call me to ask what happened and if it was really such a problem to just give them the raps. I sent screenshots of the conversation and they seemed to agree with me. Am I the jerk for telling my wife to get over herself or I'll go to my son's wedding without her? It's a bit of a complicated situation right now. My wife and I got married 13 years ago. I had a son from my previous marriage who was 15 at the time, and my wife had a daughter who was also 15. The kids were already older, and we never believed in pushing them to bond if they weren't interested in that. They had their own separate lives before we married, so there was no point in forcing them into something. I'm guessing you all know where this is going. 2 years ago, my son and stepdaughter, now both 28, sat us down and confessed that they have been dating for over a year. It was a bit strange for me hearing this, but I was respectful of their relationship. Although it did take a while for it not to feel weird for me anymore. I did always consider my stepdaughter like my own, and we're very close. My wife was upset at first, but she worked it out by believing they would break up eventually. Now that they have announced they're engaged and plan to have a small wedding in a couple months, my wife is furious. All phone calls to her daughter have been my wife demanding they break up and keeps telling her it's not natural. This has upset them both, and my wife declared she's not going to their wedding. We had a huge fight because I couldn't believe she would refuse to go to her own daughter's wedding over this. It's not like this came out of nowhere. They've been in a serious relationship for years, so she's had time to get over whatever weirdness she feels about it. I finally told her that she needs to get over herself, and if she refuses to go, then I will simply go without her. She's now mad at me for not having her back on this and acting like what she feels doesn't matter. My wife says she's allowed to not approve of their marriage, and as her husband, she thought I would have her full support on this, so she feels in a way betrayed that I'm not taking her feelings into consideration. But it's also my son's wedding, and I would never miss it. Things are very tense, and she's still telling me she's hurt by my actions and that I would willingly go to something she's not comfortable with. I'd like to know if I'm being the jerk for perhaps being too dismissive of my wife's feelings about this. I understand why she feels weird, but like I said, she's had time to get over it, so I don't know. Well, who do you agree with? OP or his wife? Please let us know.
Offer to divorce her so they won't be step-siblings anymore. Maybe then she'll get over herself.
That total just doesn't seem right. I work in a store that also has a photo printing service. This incident happened a few weeks ago during peak holiday season. A lady and her husband came in to use the self-service photo kiosk and print-offs. We'll say 173 photos. While they're printing, she shops around while her pictures are printing and picks out one item. I don't remember what it was, but we'll say it was a chapstick. It was something less than $4. Once her photos are done printing, she brings the pictures plus her chapstick up to the counter and hands me a coupon for $1 off healthcare items. Now, we're really busy, and the way our system works, you have to scan a barcode for 4x6 photos and enter the quantity to make the system calculate the total. The max you can enter is 99, so if it's more than 99, you have to scan it a second time and do the math manually to calculate the difference. There's a huge line, so I really didn't feel like taking the extra 5 seconds to figure it out. Usually when I do this, I'm on the side of caution and intentionally undercalculate by a couple photos to avoid someone coming back and saying I overcharged them. So I scan it once for 99, then a second time for like 40. I'll admit, that was my mistake, but it was the holidays and I was feeling generous. Shouldn't have done that. I scanned the chapstick and the coupon. The coupon rejects because chapstick doesn't qualify as a healthcare item. I explained that we can't use that coupon, and her husband immediately says, very aggressively, "I am a lawyer. If you're going to make coupons like this, they need to specify what qualifies and what doesn't, blah blah blah." I'm like, okay, no problem. We'll override that for you. So I void the transaction and re-ring, but this time I take my time to make sure I ring them for exactly the amount of photos they got. I override the coupon and tell them the total, which is now like $4 or $5 more than their previous one. I explain what I did on the previous transaction and that I did that because I was in a hurry, but for the sake of accuracy, I've done everything correctly this time. They huff a little bit and leave, and I go on about my day. About an hour later, the wife comes back and says her total doesn't seem right. I'm like, okay, let's take a look at the receipt. We go over it together. I say,
Okay, you got 173 photos. They're 39 cents each. I punched it into the calculator. That equals this much, plus your chapstick, which was $3.29, minus your $1 coupon. That makes your total this much. She says,
Ha! But you charged me more than that. See?
she points at her total. Yes, ma'am, that's tax, which is calculated at 0.07%. I enter that into the calculator, and we get the exact same amount on her receipt. She looks really confused. She frowns, and she says,
That still doesn't seem right.
Sorry, can't teach you math. But let me tell you, I will never cut corners to help someone out again. You are too important to take the first aid class? Have fun failing the test. This happened in 2018. My husband and I own a company that works with companies to provide doctors and nurses for factories and construction, OSHA and first aid training, and some other things. One of our major accounts is a power company. We not only provide on-site personnel, but also train them on first aid. This particular company is very strict on their health and safety protocols. They require all their crew to have an up-to-date first aid certificate, and they had shelled a decent amount of money to equip each of their sites, including their offices, with 2 AEDs, automatic electric dischargers. We were also required to provide an adjusted training for their staff and crews. Because of the nature of the job, we trained them in 3 hours/2-day schedule. One day was theory, because in a factory environment, instead of ABC, you EABC, with a written test at the end, and the next day was practical exam. We were scheduled for a 2-day training with this company. We were told it would be a small class, around 40 people, so I booked myself and our senior trainer. We arrived for the training, set up, get the roll call, and there was when it happened. Cast. We've got John, our senior trainer. We've got Karen, very important person. We've got me, and we've got Chad. As I said, this company is very hardcore on their health and safety. Except from the crews, they require every person that has even the slightest chance of visiting a power plant to have a current first aid certificate. This means we trained a lot of suits. As the room is filling up, I noticed John talking with a woman I didn't know. The conversation is heated, and I approach to see what's happening. Me. Is everything okay? Karen.
No, it's not. As I was saying to this man, I don't need to take the class. I did first aid in my previous company, and I have very important work.
Yes, you could actually hear the capital letters.
To do.
John. As I explained, madam, we follow the company policies about training.
But I already know everything.
Me. Madam, your manager booked you for this class. He probably thinks that it's more important than anything else.
No, I'm very high in the company. If you don't release me immediately, you may lose your contract.
At that point, she looked at us with crossed arms and a smug face. John, being a no-nonsense former trainer of the Army's Medic Corps, was ready to explode. Cue malicious compliance. There was a rule for the training set by the company that any personnel that could provide an up-to-date certificate could sign a waiver for the in-person training, but they had to take the test. I quickly provided this as an option to Karen. She wasn't completely happy, but she took it. I explained there were 2 tests, one in writing, one practical. She said fine and to notify her when it was time to take them. So, 2.5 hours later, she's sitting to take the written test. Immediately, I can see she's struggling, since most of the questions are tailored for an industrial setting. The test ends, and we collect the papers. At a quick glance, I knew she had, at best, passed with a very low grade. Despite her struggling in theory, she just came in for the test the next day. In this case, I knew she was going to fail. Along with their normal CPR, we had added an AED training, per company rules, and despite being a fairly easy and straightforward machine to use, she had serious trouble. So we pack up, go back to base. We rate the tests, and as expected, she was the only one who had failed both spectacularly. From the rest of the 39 people, only one had failed a written test. We sent the results and certificates to the company. Aftermath. Monday morning, just after we opened, I got a call from Chad, the company's COO. He is one of our major contacts because training was part of his responsibilities. The call went like this. Chad. Good morning, OP. I'm calling about the results of the training. Me. Good morning, Chad. I had a feeling you would call. Chad. Can you tell me why my assistant COO failed? Is Karen your assistant?
Yes.
Well, she said she had very important work to do and already had her certificate, and she signed the waiver.
Of course she did.
I could hear the frustration in their voice. Chad.
Can we arrange a quick training for today? I want you to do it.
Me. Let me check. It has to be a late one, otherwise tomorrow at 10. Chad, after some thinking.
Tomorrow then. See you at the office.
The next day rolls up, and at 10 sharp, I'm at the offices. I'm led to a conference room, glass all around, and told to wait. A few minutes later, Chad and Karen step into the room. She looked chastised. She sat across me while Chad stood. Chad asked for the waiver, which I handed to him. He took a look at it and gave it back. Chad,
As I explained when you were hired, you had to pass this training. The certificate you gave us was coming up, and you came from a different field. Now, do the training properly and pass it. It's one of the prerequisites for the job.
Karen took the training properly this time and passed. Since then, she has never complained about first aid training again. Have you ever had to do training that you didn't really want to? If so, what was it? Please let us know.
I've been going to anger management training. I don't enjoy it, but people have been telling me I seem nicer lately.
Boss says we can't drive the work truck, so we don't. The title pretty much sums it up, but a long time ago, in a city not far away, I had a terrible summer job. Right after high school, my friend and I were looking for practically anything to make money, and his older brother told us about a job he once had, working for this guy washing windows. Now, this guy owns what appears to be a semi-legitimate business. He has a full shop/garage where he stores cleaning products, big fancy tubs that use sonic waves to wash blinds in, and a new, at the time, work truck. He's also a hardcore penny pincher and buys the cheapest, crappiest insurance he can on the truck. Initially, when we got hired on, he would meet us at the shop at 7 a.m., give us the work orders, and ride out with us for on-the-job training. After a couple of weeks, he would just leave the work orders in his office and then leave us to our own devices. Now, I want to preface with, we weren't lazy. We got paid hourly, like $9 an hour, but we were commissioned based on the number of individual windows we cleaned in a day, plus how many windows required a ladder. Those paid an extra 50 cents each, so if we knocked out 3 to 4 jobs in one day, we could take home approximately $14 to $15 an hour. Another important fact is that this was right after high school, so we were both 18, and for whatever reason, the boss didn't bother to ask or check our hiring paperwork to confirm this. Well, after a month or so, he finds out how old we are and has a come apart. Turns out his insurance on his truck has a clause that anyone driving has to be at least 25 years old with a clean driving record, no DUIs or anything like that, or his monthly payment triples. So he makes it very clear to us that we are not to drive the truck, and if he finds out we're doing it anyway, he'll fire us and dock any bonus pay from our final checks. Legally, he can do that because it's bonus, not hourly. I need to drive home the fact that he was so delusional that he never paid attention to anything. So one day, we came into the shop and see a stack of about 15 jobs. However, he didn't schedule anyone else, never actually scheduled himself because he expected the shop to just run itself, except for the 2 of us that day. Cue malicious compliance. He liked to micromanage, but simultaneously never picked up his phone if we called him. So despite calling him numerous times to let him know we can't do anything, we end up just sitting in the shop and listening to the radio for most of the day. This was also only a year or 2 after smartphones came out, so things like streaming music/movies or playing games on your phone was essentially non-existent, unless you had a spare $1,000 lying around to buy the fancy new iPhone 2. Fast forward about 5 hours, and he calls one of us to see how things are going, how many jobs we had finished, and if we needed help to get anything completed. We explained that we had been sitting in the shop all day waiting for him to come in so we could get started. Well, at this point, he goes ballistic and starts just tearing us up, one side and down the other, about wasting his time/money and blah blah blah.
Why didn't you call me? Who else is there? Has anyone finished any of the jobs?
Needless to say, that was our last day there. But we threatened to report him if he didn't pay us for the time we sat in the shop that day, so we still got paid almost a full day's wages, and from what I heard, within a year or so later, his shop folded. So, win-win, I guess. Am I the jerk for blowing up on my fiance for taking and hiding my ties? Hi, I'm a 31 male elementary school teacher. Spending time with kids is a lot of fun. However, I have a ton of responsibilities as a teacher to do my job properly. To me, life isn't always sunshine and rainbows, and remaining optimistic and keeping a smile on my face for the kids is sometimes hard. I lost my dad 5 months ago. I wasn't giving my all to the job. The school I used to work in had awful rules, and I just couldn't adapt. I found a new school that I started working in the past couple of months. It's great. My current class is full of sweet, intelligent kids. I wear colorful ties at work. I got all kinds of bright colors/patterns like floral, geometric, dots, and so on.
One tie can have several colors in it. The kids love them. They always make positive comments about them, and they notice whenever I'm wearing a new tie. I come up with new activities for them. We often sit in circles, and I ask the class how many colors the tie I'm wearing has, then ask them to name every color. They either name them out loud or just write them on the board, which is another activity to improve their writing skills. We do this daily. My fiance doesn't like that for some reason. She pays attention to clothes and buys expensive accessories for herself. She expressed that she didn't feel comfortable with my new style and that I looked like a clown with a plain formal shirt and colorful ties. I told her I'm comfortable that way and she dropped it. Last week was my birthday. She got me an expensive black tie and I liked it, though it made me look too serious. She told me I should wear it at work, but I declined. We argued about it, then we dropped it. The next morning I was getting ready. I opened the closet and all my ties were gone except for the ones she got me. I looked everywhere, then I woke my fiance up to ask her. She answered by asking why I woke her up at 5 a.m. Then she said she had put them in a box and took them to her sister's so I can get used to wearing the black one she got me. I was so mad, I told her I won't be wearing the black tie to work and she should bring back my ties. She argued that I have no taste. She said I was embarrassing myself and that I'm too old to wear these colors, and being an elementary teacher doesn't mean I was allowed to make a fool of myself.
People probably gossip about those ties.
I blew up on her and called her ridiculous and inconsiderate since she cares about what others say. Then I drove to her sister's and took the box back. Needless to say, I didn't wear the black tie, but the colorful one. I had a good time with class, but my phone was ringing and my fiance said I hurt her feelings and that she was just looking out for me. But I overreacted because those were just ties. Her sister agreed. Info. First time we had this small argument, I really thought nothing of it because I expected this to not be an issue. We argue about a lot, but we quickly forget about it. But this one is still there. Note, she's not normally like this. However, she thinks that I'm doing this because of grief and says she's worried about me. I get she's worried, but I wish she'd understand. I felt bad for yelling, especially after she cheered me up on my birthday. She spent the entire day with me. Well, who do you agree with, OP or his fiance? Please let us know.
I wish you'd wear some cool ties, Mr. Reddit. You always wear that stupid orange one.
Karen coworker forces me to eat. I, 24, male, am a small man, 5'4" and 103 pounds as of my last physical. I'm well aware that I'm at an unhealthy weight. My entire life I've been small, mostly due to illnesses and myriad allergies, and it's admittedly a sore spot. I'm working with my doctor to gain weight while still fitting in with my dietary restrictions, no meat, dairy, gluten, or nuts. And honestly, I'm so much better than I was several months ago and proud of myself for the progress I've made. A coworker, Peg, 30, female, got pregnant and recently returned to work late November. She's been increasingly overt and uncomfortable in her concern for me. Peg made and brought in cupcakes for her return, and when I thanked her for thinking of us but refused, citing my gluten allergy, she was visibly upset. She didn't shout or complain much, just sighed heavily and said that she would put this one in the break room with the rest. I felt awful. Then she brought me a steak sandwich the next day on gluten-free bread. Again, I thanked her, but I had brought in my own lunch and needed to focus on that. Peg told me it was in the fridge for when I finished. Ended up bringing it home so she wouldn't feel bad and gave it to my boyfriend. Next day, she approached again. I refused again. She insisted. By now, we weren't alone in the break room. She joked that it was rude to refuse a home-cooked meal in favor of that, my lunch. At that point, I just took it and thanked her. Boyfriend ended up eating it. Then she just started leaving bagged snacks on my desk. She would approach with a snack or a portion of whatever she made for dinner the night before, and not leave me be until I had taken it. I went to our boss and explained that I felt uncomfortable and was told that she was probably feeling maternal and it would negatively impact morale to discourage her. So, been taking notes since then. What days Peg has given what, when, who witnessed it, etc. From 12/8 to now, she's done it 23 times. Yesterday, I took Peg aside and explained that while I was touched, I would appreciate it if she wouldn't bring in anything else. She said that I should have said something sooner. She was only trying to help. Have I seen myself in a mirror? Does your boyfriend like you starving yourself? Among other phrases. Livid, I told her that maybe I didn't feel like sharing my personal medical history with her just so that my wishes were respected. For God's sake, we work with a hospital. Don't you know anything about HIPAA? We parted from there, me childishly storming off and her in tears. Have I already been a huge jerk?
And would a report to HR just be the icing on the cake? I went to HR, saying that the matter was settled, but I wanted it documented. Subsequently, was told that there would be an investigation and the incidents would be corroborated with witnesses. Because, as is, the full record, I claim, is severe enough to warrant potential action for Peg and several other coworkers who also engaged in her behavior. HR started the process, apparently immediately, because I walked in yesterday to a crap storm. This plunged the department into war. Many agree Peg was out of line. Some told me I should have kept the status quo. Some said I was ungrateful and entitled. One said I should have handled this maturely, and who could blame her when I look like that, and I should be ashamed of myself. Another coworker suggested I work from home. Another told me he was sorry for not stepping in. I went to go get my lunch out of the fridge, only to find someone had disposed of it and left behind the empty Tupperware. Nearly everyone has an opinion. The people in my corner have advised me to keep my head down and to take care. My boss held a meeting, first with Peg and me, then a second with just me. During the one with Peg, I was told to apologize for my part and Peg likewise. I'm sorry if I made you uncomfortable by caring about your health. My boss asked if I was satisfied now. I brought up Peg's comments and my boss said I invited them. No one would call that harassment and I need to work on myself. Together, we went through each of the 23 events. She excused each of them until I was left to feel like I had been harassing Peg. The next meeting was even worse. Effectively, boss said, I told you not to retaliate, and instead, you searched Peg out to harass her, and your actions have expressed a worrying lack of cooperation with me and your team. She was also disappointed that instead of explaining that I needed her to resolve things, I escalated the situation well beyond the point of reason, and cruel to someone who only wanted to help. She said I won't get far in life, and I'm not likely to get anywhere vocationally if I can't be a team player and actively sabotage a happy workplace. She hoped I will learn from this teachable moment how to behave in a collaborative environment, as it's inappropriate to involve HR for small misunderstandings. Boyfriend is mad. I'm just tired, confused, and hurt. HR seemed sympathetic. Boss is very clearly on Peg's side. The office is split and tense. Currently updating my resume and job searching. It really does feel like a nightmare. Haven't felt good going into work for a while, and this just made it 10 times worse. Well, what would you do in this situation? If you had a coworker who kept trying to force food onto you, please let us know.
I'd see who I could sell it to.
The Christmas Ornaments Robin Hood. It is 2020, unfortunately. It's the day after my 2 younger sisters and I flew out to Pennsylvania to see my dad, who lives there after getting divorced from my mom for 15 years of not being a good husband or dad. He lives with his mom, cranky grandma, and her devil cat, as well as my amazing aunt and her angel kitten. Dad gets home from work. Where's Emmy? He asks my cranky grandma.
She's in the basement,
Cranky grandma says, probably throwing out a snide comment or two about the newly dyed purple hair adorning my head or the leather fingerless gloves that have joined my black wardrobe.
looking for some Christmas ornaments.
Dad goes down the basement stairs and finds me rummaging through cardboard boxes. What are you looking for? He says. Hi, Dad, I say. Well, I noticed that you decorated for Christmas, but you're missing a few things. Where are the mooses? The mooses are a pair of stuffed mooses that have been put up every Christmas since I can remember. They're brown, about 2 feet tall, and soft as a marshmallow. There's Mama Moose, who is named Mary, holding Baby Moose, who is named Christmas, and is in a red velvet sack reading Merry Christmas on it in gold embroidery. The mooses always go on the couch to watch over the living room and all the decorations and presents in it while we're asleep. The problem with the mooses is that when my mom divorced Dad, she was so scared of him that she let him have almost everything. This included the mooses and quite a few more of her treasured ornaments. And since I've always been the one to set the mooses on the couch, that first Christmas with a divorced dad just didn't feel right without them. Dad helps me look for the mooses for a while. Sorry, sweetie, they must have gotten lost in the move, he says. I smile and don't tell him that I hate being called sweetie. It's okay, I say, and pull out a cardboard box. Hey, look, it's your What God Wants for Christmas box. I love that tradition. We go set up the What God Wants for Christmas in the living room. I say, I think I'm going to go take a nap. Dad says okay. I go upstairs and into my room and shut the door. I walk over to the window seat/storage chest under the window. I open it. Hello, mooses, I say. The mooses lay on top of the stuffed animal collection, looking dusty.
Several other ornaments I recognize as mom's are keeping them company. I grin and shut the chest. It's the day we fly back to my home state. I have the mooses packed away in my suitcase and the other ornaments tucked behind them, wrapped in my fluffiest, but still black, hoodie to protect them. I roll my suitcase out to the hallway. Dad is weighing youngest sister's bag to make sure it's under 50 pounds. Okay, now I need to check to make sure you're not stealing any of my stuff, he tells her. My mind says, oh no. My brain gives me uncomfortable memories of how Dad raged when he thought one of us had stolen his coffee mug. My voice says, privacy invaded in 3, 2, in a joking tone. Dad and youngest sister laugh. Dad does not check anyone's suitcase. We're at the airport. Youngest sister's suitcase is somehow 3 pounds over the weight limit. Dad says, Emmy, grab one of your suitcases that already went through and open it up. We'll put some of your younger sister's stuff in there. He gestures to my suitcase. My mind makes an ear-splitting, screeching noise that sounds like someone slammed their brakes to avoid hitting a pterodactyl and hit the pterodactyl anyway. My brain imagines Dad opening the suitcase and going into a rage at the sight of the mooses. My voice says, sure, Dad. My hands grab youngest sister's suitcase instead of mine and pass it over. Dad opens it. Her suitcase contains no smuggled goods. We transfer the stuff, and the very nice airport lady sends all the bags down the conveyor belt. Dad asks me why I wave to mine. I shrug. Just being weird, I say. Good luck, mooses, my mind says. We are back home. My family, my older sister, who didn't go with us, Mom, my other grandma, who we call Maga, and my Papa, or Grandpa, are all sitting in the living room catching up. I say, I'm disappointed you took the tree down already. Older sister laughs. It's past New Year's. I know, I say, but I brought some stuff to put on it. I open my suitcase. I show around the ornaments I smuggled back. 3 tiny stuffed snowmen, our cat's catnip stuffed cat ornament, a white clay angel, a wooden rocking horse, a wooden mouse king, a clay snowman, my older sister's stuffed dog. When I unveil the rocking horse, Maga gasps. I bought that for your mother when she was little, she exclaims. How did your dad get it? That's not everything, I say. I unzip the flap hiding the mooses from view. I pull out the mooses. Older sister and Papa clap. How did you get those back here right under your dad's nose? Older sister asks. Maga laughs so hard she has tears in her eyes. The tears in Mom's eyes are not from laughter. Slowly, she reaches out and takes the mooses, hugging them to her chest. Over their antlers, she mouths, thank you. And then she gets up and sets the mooses down on the couch, right where they belong. Do you have any favorite Christmas ornaments? If so, what are they? Please let us know. Nutcrackers for the win. Am I the jerk for firing my son? I'll get straight to the issue. I'm male, 43, and my 17-year-old son, Adam, has been trying to become independent and preparing to move out to college, but was struggling to find a job. I own a private warehouse as a side job to earn a living. My wife suggested I hire my son to work at the warehouse, moving boxes, bringing workers lunch, helping with cleaning, that kind of stuff. She said it's for both of our benefits since he couldn't find a job and we needed to hire someone new. I agreed, and Adam was so happy and excited to start working. We agreed on the salary and work hours, so he still has some time to study and practice. The first couple of weeks were going fine. That is, until one day. The workers were moving boxes, computers, into the warehouse. The client wanted them to be stored for a few days, and we already arranged before they arrived. It was all written down, including the number of computers we stored. In the evening, while I was checking, I noticed that there was one computer missing. I gathered all workers except for Adam, and they had no idea and thought there was a mistake. I brought it up at home, and Adam told me that he saw one of the workers putting a box in the garage to take home with him. I was confused since he couldn't specify which worker it was. He eventually gave me a name, and I went to talk to the worker. He denied it, and I ended up giving him X time to bring back the box, and then I discussed why he did what he did. The worker is a single dad with 3 kids. I've known him for a while, and I wanted to give him a chance. The next day, I was busy. My daughter was in the hospital, and I got back to the warehouse at 8 p.m., and it occurred to me to check the cameras. What I saw was Adam putting a box in the back of his friend's car, and then the car left. I knew his friend and knew Adam stole the computer. I went home and confronted him. My wife sided with him when he denied it, and after arguing for hours, I fired him, and I told him he was lucky I didn't call the police. This was my responsibility. The client entrusted me with his computers, and Adam stole on the job. Adam started crying.
My wife said I was wrong for firing him, that it was extreme and I should have just took from his salary. She refused to drop it and tried to convince me to hire him again, but I refused. I apologized to my worker and I told him if there's anyone he knows who needs this job, I'll be more than happy to hire them. He brought his brother and he started working with us right away. Now, my family's calling me a jerk for hiring an outsider and not my son. The box was being kept at his friend's place. His friend is such a disrespectful jerk. I won't be surprised if he was the one who came up with the idea. However, it was Adam who took it, and so he needed to be fired. This is not okay, nor is it acceptable. Well, what do you think? Was OP a jerk for firing his son or not? Please let us know.
I would have called the cops on that kid. Stealing from your dad's business? Talk about a rotten apple.
Where are the Heelys? I used to work at a fairly large sporting goods store. This was a while ago, back when Heelys were still a thing. Are they still a thing? Our store received a promotional display with a large 3-foot sign with red lettering that said Heelys in the form of a sole of a shoe. They also put a large spinning wheel in it too. It was pretty cool. Kids loved it. However, for some reason, this sign was absolutely invisible. Like somehow the company had put on special paint that made it invisible to the eyes of adults. Must be the same paint they used to make out-of-order signs. Anyway, here's the story.
Where are your Heelys?
A woman demands as she approaches me in the shoe department.
I've been through this whole store and I can't find them. I was told they're here.
Yes, ma'am, I'll take you to them. I bring her to the display and think it's a little obvious because of the large sign, but I put my hand on the display just for that little extra obviousness and turn around. Here you go, ma'am. The woman continues to stare at me, eyes locked onto me like a hawk. So I started to gesture to the large sign that said Heelys. She still doesn't see it. I even tried to do a little Vanna White gesture towards the sign and display. Still nothing. By this point, I'm gesturing with 2 hands towards the sign, display, and individual shoes on the display. Nope. She just stared at me like I was a mime, acting out the old invisible box routine. They're right here, ma'am.
Where?
She asks, throwing up her arms, and finally drawing her eyes away from me, looking 10 feet above my head.
Where are the Heelys?
She practically yells to the heavens. I turn my head slowly to see where she's looking. I start to think this must be some kind of a practical joke or some kind of candid camera. Standing in the presence of something as dense as a neutron star is causing a violent reaction in my brain, and I have my first aneurysm. My coworker, who was watching the entire scene play out, finally manages to put on a straight face and come to my rescue. Hi, ma'am. Are you looking for Heelys? He asks her calmly.
Yes,
she says, frustrated with the service that I had been providing her. I'm not sure if we have some in stock right now, but if you follow me, I'm sure we can find some, he tells her, leading her away from the display. He got her to do a half circuit around the store before returning back to the same place in front of the Heelys display where the whole incident took place. I'm sorry, ma'am. They had the display in the power aisle earlier. It was a half-truth. It was in fact in the power aisle last month, but moved to the shoe department because people kept blocking the entire aisle crowding around the display. I know we are expecting a new shipment soon. I would check back early next week.
Oh well, thank you for your time,
she tells him as he casually leans against the large, obnoxious Heelys display. This guy is a magician. I bring her to what she wants. She gets mad at me. My coworker makes her walk around the store for nothing, and she's grateful for it. No problem, ma'am. Enjoy the rest of your day, he tells her, and we wait until she's out of earshot. He turns to me and completely loses it. For 5 minutes, he cannot stop laughing. He then stands in front of the Heelys display, throws up his arms, and shouts to the heavens,
Where are the Heelys?
Whenever a customer asks where the Heelys are, I just tell them, right down there, and look down, you can't miss it. I never went near that display if I could help it. Edit. This was a long time ago, like fresh out of high school a long time ago. I had not yet picked up the skills to effectively communicate with customers, as I had effectively grown up getting the verbal stiff arm by the adults around me when asking vague questions. So I had grown up asking specific questions to get specifically what I wanted and assumed that adults were expected to do the same as well. So retail was a big welcome to the real world for me. Have you ever tried shoes with wheels in them like Heelys? If not, would you like to try them? Please let us know.
Heelys were the funnest shoes I ever had. We'll leave a link to them in the pinned comments below, right after we go order a pair ourselves.
Customer mad that he got something for free. For context, I work at a grocery store where, when a customer uses their rewards card, Every 100 rewards points equals either 10 cents off a gallon of gas at our company's gas pumps or $1 off of a purchase. Most customers prefer the gas money since gas prices are expensive where I live, but occasionally I'll find a customer who's willing to go through all the tedious steps of turning their rewards points into a grocery discount. When the discount is transformed onto their card, it automatically comes off the next time the customer uses their card on a purchase. Anyway, time for the story. An older man, probably in his 50s, comes through my lane the day after Christmas. He's pleasant, albeit a bit unenthusiastic. Whatever, it's 7 p.m., right after a major holiday. He probably just wants to go home. All he's buying is a sandwich from our in-store deli. I go through the whole, "Hi, how are you today?" script as per usual as I ring up the sandwich, which is $3.29. I ask him if he has a rewards card he would like to use. He does, and I scan it. Then I hit total. I stare in confusion at my computer screen. I have dyscalculia, like dyslexia but with numbers, so at first I think I'm just reading all the numbers wrong. But no, the computer definitely says $0 and 0 cents, and there's a little message on the item list on my screen that says, "Grocery discount, $3.29, so I know I'm not hallucinating. I smile pleasantly at my customer and say, "You lucky duck, you had some grocery dollars on your card, and you're getting this for free." I thought he'd be pleasantly surprised. It's a Christmas miracle. He doesn't have to pay for his sandwich. But no, instead he frowns. I don't remember exactly what he said, but he was very unhappy his discount had come off of this purchase. "Take off the discount," he tells me. I blink. "What?" I ask him, trying to retain my customer service voice. "I wanted to use my $7 discount on my grocery order next week. I don't want a discount on this. I want to pay for it." He's getting belligerent and I'm getting nervous. "I can't take the discount off, sir," I tell him, trying to stay pleasant. "There's no option on my computer for that. It's automatic." "Well, how do I get my $3 back on my card then?" "Well, I can void this whole transaction and start over, and you don't have to scan your card this time. I just have to get my manager over to authorize—"
"I don't want to wait."
I think fast. I have a lot of options here, but none of them will make him happy. I decide I'll just shove him off on the people at the customer service desk. They'd be able to help him a lot better than I would anyway. "Here, I'll just go through with this transaction. Then you can take your receipt over to customer service, pay for your item there, and then get your discount put back onto your card." I finish the transaction. He doesn't thank me or say goodbye, and I continue on with my evening. I still don't know if he ever got his discount put back on his card, nor do I know if he ever realized that the $3.29 he got discounted off of that sandwich was the exact same $3.29 he would have not had to spend on a future grocery order. It's the same amount of money, sir. Edit. There's a lot of questions in the comments about how the points and discounts work. Every dollar you spend is 1 point. Every 100 points is 10 cents off per gallon of gas with no upward limit on the number of gallons you can pump. Or $1 off your next grocery order with no upward limit on the amount of dollars you can get discounted. In order to get the grocery discount on your card, you have to download the app or visit the website and convert your points to dollars. Then activate the discount on your card like you would with an online exclusive coupon. Then, just like an online coupon or any other digitally activated discount, it'll automatically come off on your next order as soon as you scan your card. There is no confirmation button for either the cashier or the customer. There's no way for the cashier to know there's a discount on the card until the transaction has been totaled, and there's no way to get rid of the discount once it has been applied. I do agree that maybe there should be a pop-up on the cashier screen in case the customer doesn't want the discount for whatever reason. But alas, if the discount comes off on the transaction, that means they've already activated the discount, which generally means they want to use it. Just take your warm wine coolers and go, Karen. I'm excited to type this story, so my apologies if it's all over the place. I've dealt with Karens before, but not like this. I never thought I'd encounter one in the wild. Last night, I took a trip to my local liquor store to get some bourbon for my apartment. I'll admit, I'm there often. The employees are cool, low-key, and most importantly, they don't judge me for frequent visits. I pick up a nice bottle and start reading the label when I hear a loud ahem behind me. I turn around and see a full-blown Karen. Like when I say this lady could be the mascot for Karens R Us, I mean it. Karen is holding a pack of blue, gross-looking wine coolers. She goes, "I'd like these cold." I chuckle politely. "Oh, sorry, I don't work here." I do a quick scan of the store and spot an employee a few aisles away, stocking shelves. I point to him. It looks like he does, though. I turn back around and continue reading the bottle in my hand. Karen did not accept my response.
Yeah, you do. I see you in here all the time,"
She answered, very rudely.
I turn back, chuckle again, and say, yeah, they should hang a plaque in my honor for how much business I give them. But I really don't work here. I took my bottle and continued down the aisle. Karen followed closely behind me. She was definitely not social distancing. She scoffs.
Well, can't you just look for me anyway, since you're here so often?
I was kinda shocked by this request. Like, what? I simply replied with, I'm actually on my way to check out, but I'm sure that employee can help you. Before I could even finish, Karen huffed.
Judging by your appearance, you mustn't have a job or life to get back to so quickly. I swear, the level of respect these days is ridiculous.
I was wearing sweatpants, so it's weird she thought I worked there in the first place. I didn't even turn around this time. I just laughed and said, whatever, lady, Godspeed. Karen did not like this one bit.
What did you just say to me, you little brat?
I knew I shouldn't fuel the fire, but I'm pretty sarcastic by nature, and I just couldn't help it. I turned to her for the last time and said, well, judging by your appearance, I wouldn't expect you to know how to treat people with basic human decency. I hope those wine coolers help heal whatever wounds are possessing you to act like a kid. Fingers crossed you brought your ID. It's like she malfunctioned. She just stood there dumbfounded, with an awful grimace on her face. She slammed the wine coolers down on the floor and walked out of the store. I happily picked them up and brought them back to where they belonged, earning a smile and a nod from the employee. Let me tell you, the bourbon tasted even better after that. Lady, please, I'm just trying to get cake ingredients. So this just happened an hour or so ago. My grandmother and I went out shopping to get ingredients for my birthday dinner and the cake I'm going to make. My birthday is in 2 weeks, but the ingredients we needed are on sale and most of them are canned, so we went to get them today. My grandma decided it would be faster if I were to take a basket and grab the cake mix and pineapple, and any other mixes we needed at home, and she went to get the peas, orzo, and bacon bits. I found the pineapple cans pretty fast, so I had plenty of time to look at all of the cake and brownie mixes. I had some music playing in my headphones, so I couldn't hear anything around me. While I was looking, someone tapped me on the shoulder. I assumed I was standing in their way and they needed something from the shelf I was looking at. I said, "Oh, I'm sorry," and stepped aside. I saw the lady start talking, so I pulled out one of my earbuds. Lady,
can you help me find
whatever item it was, I don't remember. Me, knowing where most of the items are. Oh, that should be an aisle number, unless they rearranged the store.
Well, aren't you going to show me where it is?
Me, oh, sorry, I'm actually looking for cake mixes. I don't work here. I should probably note that most employees at this store wear vests, and I was wearing an olive green shirt I had just gotten for Christmas. Lady,
don't lie to me. You obviously work here.
She gestured towards my lanyard, which I have a picture of my late husky hanging on. It also has a key to my home, which I have just in case I get locked out. Me, getting really anxious because I don't like confrontation. Lady, please, this is just a picture of my old dog and a key to my home. I told you where your stuff should be, so please leave me alone. You're making me uncomfortable. Lady, getting irritated.
I'm not leaving you alone until you take me to where the item is.
At this point, she had started raising her voice and had caught the attention of some people nearby. One guy who looked about my age walked up and asked if she was bothering me. Before I could get a word out, the lady started going off.
This young lady won't show me where this item is.
Other stuff I don't remember because I was trying to hold back tears. Guy, lady, she doesn't work here. She goes to my high school. I know her. Leave her alone. At this point, the lady spotted an actual employee and walked off to harass them. I think the guy, who for the record actually does go to my school, I just didn't recognize him, and went back to picking out mixes. Try to prank me? Good luck getting your camper back. Anyone who follows me or reads any of my posts knows something about my wife's best friend I'll call Karen. A harpy from heck. She makes everyone, even my wife sometimes, miserable. She also thinks she's smarter than everyone and is just stuck up enough to believe no one would dare cross her. So a friend of ours, I'll call Bill, bought a piece of property next door to us. He had a car accident in November and lives an hour away. He made me a legal agent of the property, which means I have almost as much power as he does. Think property manager. It has a small house on it that's unoccupied, but I keep an eye on things. He bought the property only because next to the house is a big asphalt parking lot. It used to be a lot for a small used car company. His reasoning was that during the bad winter months, he could park equipment and trucks from his other companies there. So he also had me put up a huge, "No parking. Violators will be towed at the owner's expense" signs all around it. Moving on. So Sunday, I'm elbow deep into an RC submersible when my wife bursts into my study and yells for me to listen to something.
I take the phone, and who's doing a live video? Karen. Karen was talking about how she was going away for a few days. This was Sunday morning because she was so stressed out from always giving people advice and helping them through their problems, etc. And then she mentioned, again, why my wife told me. She talked about how she parked her 46-foot fifth wheel, $35,000 camper next door to me, and seeing Bill was unreachable this week, I would have to look at it for the next 3 days as a reminder that she's not only smarter, but 10 moves ahead of me, and I'm a jerk because I wouldn't loan her a truck and it cost her money to rent one. Turns out she told her husband, who was gone during the week for work, that she had Bill's permission to put it there. So early Sunday morning, he towed it over there. I was upset. She has a tendency to lie, so I went outside and there it was. Parked right there in the middle of the lot was her camper. I actually smiled because I had a perfect plan. As being a manager of the property, I also had a right to have any vehicle towed off there, including that one. I had two options. Call Garage A, owned by a nice guy, doesn't charge the state maximum for the tow and storage fees, explain what happened, and he might cut you a break. Then there's Garage B. He doesn't care if he has to tow your car 15 feet. He's charging you the max and always charges the maximum storage fees. So you're darn right, I went with Garage B. Called the guy, gave him my name, told him I managed the property and bring a fifth wheel. He had it gone in less than a half an hour. This is the best part yet, my friends. I didn't tell her it was towed until yesterday morning. Yes, I waited from Sunday afternoon till Tuesday morning. Yesterday morning, she's on Facebook Live, streaming from her car, talking about how she was going to go visit her camper for another laugh. Then I got on live. My wife sent her a message to get on my live stream like now and post the link to my page. When she was viewing, I said this. Hey Karen, hope you had a wonderful time. I have to tell you something. I had your camper towed. With me being the property's manager and Bill being unavailable, I had to have it towed. We can't let people think they can just park on there illegally. XYZ Tow has the camper. I was going to call you Sunday, but you seemed so stressed out that I thought you deserved the break. I mean, the camper is safe. That's all that matters, right? Well, Facebook lit up like a Christmas tree. As I had hoped, those watching her stream followed because, well, they were curious too. And then the messages started. A few condemned me, but most were supportive. Some thought it was about time someone showed her that she wasn't all-powerful and no one was scared of her. Then it went quiet. Now, a normal person might be upset, but understandable. But she went the wounded Karen route. That afternoon, she got back on again. She was crying, fake crying, about how it was going to cost her over $2,000 in fees because her husband wouldn't be back until Friday to tow it back, and could someone please do it for her? A bonus I was hoping would happen. And that if she started a GoFundMe page, would people donate to help her pay the fees? The answers to that were between no and heck no. But hey, she didn't threaten to sue me at least, right? Side note, Bill is unavailable this week except to certain people, which I am part of. I called him and told him the whole story. His answer was exactly, good. You want to play games? Then be prepared to lose. The camper is still there. No one volunteered to get it. A few said they would for gas money, but she tried to play it off as it would be helping her, and she owed so much in fees and that she would owe them a favor no one would collect on because she has nothing to bargain with. Do this next. Tap here on your screen to come see our new podcast playlist, where you'll find thousands of hours of the best stories you've ever heard.
Or tap the one on the right. That episode is specifically just for you, based on other videos you've enjoyed the most.